Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my ex is demanding I pay her rent. I, 33 male, started talking to my ex, 27 female, after 6 years. She was separating from her boyfriend and moving out of the house they rented. Our conversations were innocent enough, catching up, reminiscing, nothing about hooking up. Everything seemed great, and I thought we were reconnecting. A week later, I asked if she wanted to meet. She agreed, and I was excited. I made reservations at a restaurant I knew she would like and texted her to confirm. She replied, "It's a date." I get to the restaurant, text her, "I'm here," and I ask for her ETA. No response. I message, text, and call her. No response. I wait in my car wondering what's going on. Is she hurt? Is our battery dead? Any excuse I could think of to justify this behavior. After an hour of waiting, I just went home. The next morning, I wake up to texts from her apologizing for not showing up, but no explanation. I ask her if she's okay. She replies that she's fine and changes the topic. We kept talking after that, and I once again ask her to meet. She says that she would love to. This time, I don't drive to the restaurant until I get confirmation, but that confirmation never came. The next morning, it's déjà vu. Apology text, but no explanations. Through our conversations, I learned that she's in financial trouble. I tell her that if things go well between us, I'd be happy to help, but seeing as she's living with her ex right now, I haven't seen her in 6 years and she's bailed on me multiple times, I would need to regain my trust for her. She replies, "I don't need a sugar daddy. I'm capable of taking care of myself." Skip to a week later. I get a call at 2 a.m. from her asking if she could come over. I say yes. She shows up, we have some wine and make out for a bit, and I was overjoyed thinking that we may actually have another chance at this relationship. Before she left, I asked if we could do this again. She said she would love to. The next day, she asks if I could drop her off at the airport. I said yes. The day arrives that I'm supposed to drop her off, and once again, nothing. I hear back from her 2 days later, claiming that she broke her phone. She did this 4 more times. This is the part where I may be the jerk. 2 days ago, she sends me a screenshot of an email she received from her landlord claiming that they're starting the eviction process. I replied, "I'm sorry this is happening." The following morning, she sends me a message calling me a jerk for not offering to pay her rent. I replied that she has bailed on me every time we were supposed to hang. All we do is text, and I don't trust her based on her past behavior. After calling me names and arguing with me, she said, "If you really cared about me, then you would have given money, no questions asked." I thought that was a ridiculous statement. My friends and family are on my side, but a coworker mentioned that it seems like my ex is struggling. And if I in fact did want some kind of a romantic relationship, I should have helped. Now I'm feeling kind of guilty. So I ask, am I the jerk for not paying my ex's rent? Not the jerk, but you are kind of dumb. Not the jerk. She doesn't need a sugar daddy. She's capable of taking care of herself. But seriously, you never agreed that you'd pay her rent. She's been playing you this whole time. Odds are that her ex isn't really an ex. Not the jerk. First of all, she's an ex. So sometimes you just have to realize if things haven't worked in the past, that the issues from last time don't magically disappear, and it's better to move on with your life with no contact. She's consistently showing you that you're not a priority in her life. I do find it kind of funny though that she doesn't want a sugar daddy, but yet she suddenly wants money from you. As I said above, I think it's time to realize that she is too much drama and walk away for good this time. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you help your ex pay their rent or not? Please let us know. Never let others use you or walk all over you. None of you deserve that kind of treatment, my friends. You use me and walk all over me. That's different, I'm a Karen. I, 40 male, started to cheat on my wife who's 38, but I stopped halfway through. Do I still have to tell her? My wife and I have a great relationship. I can't say that I have any real complaints. We've been together for 5 years, married for 2 of those, and up until now, I would have said I would never stray. I was away for work last week, and while I was at the hotel, a young woman who was 21 sat next to me and began to flirt with me. I was extremely flattered by the attention. I have to admit, it was a real ego boost to be flirted with by someone her age, as I've started to get that middle-aged dad bod, and I've been feeling like I'm losing my looks a bit. After a bit of talking, the woman invited herself back up to my hotel room where we hooked up. For me, it was about the thrill of being desired by someone other than my wife. I was slightly drunk, and I figured I'll probably never get this opportunity again. But the thrill wore off very quickly as I realized that I wasn't enjoying myself. This girl just was not any good. She didn't seem interested in me at all. I just wasn't into it, and I stopped about 10 minutes in, and I asked her to leave, which she did. I just took a shower, then called my wife to hear her voice. Now I'm back home, and so far I haven't told my wife about any of it. There's a guilty part of me that says I should, because she deserves to know. But another part of me says, why should I torpedo our happy marriage and cause her pain for something that I didn't even enjoy and will never do again? All it did was prove to me that I want my wife more than anyone else. I want to do the right thing, but I genuinely don't know what the right thing is to do here. I know that I will never ever stray again. Should I tell her or keep it to myself? Do not tell her about this. Don't blow up her world because you feel guilty. This is your burden to live with. Don't shift the burden to her. Take that time and energy you'd have had to use repairing your relationship and helping her heal emotionally and focus on improving your own self-worth so you don't need some idiotic encounter with a stranger to make you feel worthy. OP, this is what I wonder if I should do. I'm never going to cheat or even come close to it again. I consider this my wake-up call. So I don't know what purpose her knowing about this would actually serve. Wouldn't it just hurt us both? But then again, I think if she had done this, I would want to know. You didn't start to cheat. You cheated. Hard stop. You worded it this way to make yourself sound not bad. Let me say it again. You cheated. Don't forget that you said you didn't enjoy it because you felt that she just wasn't into it. Would you have felt bad and still stopped if you thought that she was great? Again, you cheated. OP. Okay then, yes, I cheated. I do take responsibility for that. I realize I messed up. If she had been great, then I don't know. The fact that she was so bad brought me back to reality. But I think even if she had been great, I would still have realized that I ultimately just want my wife. What is it you hope your wife will gain from knowing this? OP, that's what I'm wondering. A lot of people are saying I should tell her, and I understand their point, but I just wonder what either of us will actually gain from that. It will hurt her deeply for no reason and possibly destroy our marriage. Difficult one. You cheated. She deserves to know. You're a jerk, but then again, many people are, so you have solidarity. If you promise never to do it again, I'll forgive you. That's if you can live with the guilt. I wouldn't be able to. I'm not a better person than you. I can't advise you. It's your choice. The greater good, as it were. Usually, I would say you have to fess up, but she might leave you. I do understand your situation, though. Most here won't. It feels good to be wanted, but still, you messed up. It's all on your moral compass, my friend. The answer is there, but let me ask you, if you told your wife what happened and she forgave you, would you still respect her? Or would you forgive her transgressions if she cheated on you? Nobody here should judge you. You know you messed up. Be honest and risk losing everything, or keep it quiet and live with that regret for the rest of your life. That's your decision and yours alone. OP. If my wife told me this same story, I don't know. I think I would forgive her, but it would be hard and it would break my heart to hear it. I think the only thing that would stop it from totally destroying me is if she didn't enjoy it. Because if she did do this and she enjoyed it, that would tear me apart. Update. I was still not sure whether or not to tell my wife what had happened. This is not because I'm selfish, like some of you said, but because I was struggling to find the logic in telling her something that would hurt her when she didn't need to know because it was never going to happen again. But I did also take on board what others said about how if it were them, they would want to know, and to some point I agreed with them about that. It didn't end up mattering because my wife realized something was up a few days after I got back from my work trip. She brought up how I'd been very quiet and seemed off ever since getting back, and she looked and sounded so worried about me that I decided in the moment to tell her. I didn't want us to have any secrets from each other. I told her everything. She didn't believe me at first. She believed I'd started to hook up with the other person, but not that I had stopped. I showed her the Reddit post I made so she could see that I wasn't just spinning her a flattering story to try and get off the hook. She started to cry while reading it, and then said the sentence that has been going around and around in my head 24/7 since then. I loved you so much. Loved, past tense. I asked if she could really just fall out of love so quickly, and she said yes. In the space of a few minutes, I had gone from the love of her life and the man she wanted to grow old with to just another sad man having a midlife crisis. We talked for most of the night, but she wouldn't budge. She turned down my offer of marriage counseling or counseling for just myself. I suggested we take a short week's break so she can think about things, but her mind is made up. We are filing for divorce, and in the meantime, I am sleeping in our spare room so that she can remain in our bed. This is not how I wanted any of this to go. She is without a doubt the woman I love and the woman I will always love. And if I could go back in time, I would lock myself in my hotel room for that entire work trip and only come out for the conference. I hope that she might one day change her mind all the same. Our connection is too strong to be destroyed by 30 minutes of poor decision-making. I absolutely will always love her. Even if she never agrees to come back, I will still love her. I don't know yet if she'll ever forgive me, but I'm going to make sure I'm a man who's worthy of her forgiveness. Bro, my dude, you messed up in a lot of ways. Try some therapy, even though she's divorcing you. P.S. I think you were extra scared to tell her because you knew just how strong her backbone was and you knew you couldn't manipulate her out of it. OP. It wasn't that I wanted to manipulate her. If you knew her, you'd know she's not someone who can be manipulated by anyone, and I know her better than to even try. She does have a strong backbone, and when she feels strongly about something, she's all in. That's why I find it so unbelievable that she could fall out of love just like that, because she's a person who loves very deeply. I was scared to tell her because I didn't want to cause her this level of sadness. The people on this thread suck. Cheating happens. It's not excusable, but it's very forgivable. We are highly intelligent animals, but still animals. We have desires. Sometimes you have to make the mistake before you realize how much of a mistake it is. We all do regrettable things. That said, forgiveness doesn't have to happen. If your wife can't forgive you, then you have to live with that and work on moving on. Life is a series of mistakes and learning from them, so you can prevent them moving forward. But mistakes don't define us. I hope you're able to eventually find solace. OP. I'm happy to take all of the blame. I messed up. I know that. I'm not interested in trying to make anyone else take responsibility for the mistake that I made. I'm just interested in trying to make up for them in any way I can. Well, what if you were in this situation? Would you be able to forgive your spouse if they did something like this or not? Please let us know. If you even look at another woman, Reddit boy, you'll need a new head. Am I the jerk for taking in my problem cousin and canceling family events? Plus update. Me, male 30, and my wife, who's 27, own a sizable farm that is usually the nexus of family events. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 300 acres, and electrical hookups for 4 campers so the whole clan can come stay for extended visits in the summer. We built it that way deliberately. My cousin Bill, male, early 50s, has a daughter, Alice, who's 18, from his first marriage. His first wife was an immigrant with no family in our country and no contact with any of the family in her country. She passed when Alice was 2, and Bill remarried Tanya, female, early 50s, 6 months later. They have since had 3 kids, who are 14, 12, and 8. Alice is a brat. Everything in their house revolves around either the boys, their 2 eldest, or their princess, their daughter together, and Alice is left behind. She doesn't get to go on family trips, they wouldn't pay for extracurricular stuff, she couldn't take elective classes that had extra fees, etc. I'm not a smart man, but I can recognize a kid that's hurting inside and being neglected. She's like Mr. Hyde with them and Dr. Jekyll everywhere else. For the last 4 summers, she's been coming to work on the farm because her parents don't want her around over summer break. She turned 18 recently, and leading up to her birthday, her dad was very adamant that she was being kicked out of the house when she turned 18 because it will teach her responsibility. We, myself, my wife, and Alice, discussed it, and early on her birthday, we pulled up with my truck and packed her stuff. We only packed things she purchased herself or things that were given to her by another person. My boss got creative with our benefits provider so we can get Alice on our medical benefits until she finishes university. She starts in a few weeks, so she's able to go to therapy. This is where it all comes apart. Bill and Tanya are upset that we took her in and refused to come to family events. Part of the family refuses to attend as well because I'm undermining Bill and Tanya. I'll understand when I have kids. After they refused to attend events, a few others said that with gas being so expensive and not everyone attending, they'd skip as well. My answer of, okie dokie, come if you want and don't if you don't, further upset people who thought I should have tried harder to get people to come. So now we're down to about 1/4 of the family in attendance for events. My aunt suggested that we have Alice over on weekends and that she stays in a dorm during the week to smooth things over. I think that's dumb, but I'm dumb and stubborn. My wife thinks it's dumb, and she's really smart, but also very much attached to the situation. Alice said she'd rather stay with us, but would try the dorms to help make peace. Am I the jerk for not going with the dorm suggestion to keep the peace? Edit. I called Alice a brat, and my original post was way past character limit, but in some of the stuff that I removed, I explained it more. Typical teenage acting out, but cranked up. Slamming doors, screaming matches with her stepmom, probably 3 or 4 big blowouts a week, and sometimes over some pretty disproportionately small stuff. I've watched her grow, and the acting out definitely came after the exclusion from family stuff. Update. I ripped the band-aid off with the old fam jam and told them that fewer mouths to feed isn't the punishment they thought it was. Anyone else who was coming is still welcome, and I'd have that extra cash from not feeding so many people to help the folks concerned about gas prices make it out if they so choose. I'm in like 4 different family group chats, and they're all lighting up. I'm going to turn my phone on silent for a while and let the sparks fly. Update 3. So my family likes to gossip, and they're efficient at it. If your truck breaks down with only you in it 5 miles from home, word has reached every aunt and cousin before you're in your door. When I put the word out, it traveled fast. This morning, I've been called all the names in the book, and some new ones, so there may be a revised and updated edition of said book coming out. I've been told I'm a good guy, a bad guy, I'm stupid, I'm smart. Long story short, I've got about a dozen relatives telling me thanks, and that they'll buy me a pint next time they're out and about. Now, nobody here really cares about me. We're all about Team Alice here. She's a Redditor apparently, and came across the post independently of me showing her. There were tears, born of stress and relief I think, and she's going to be staying here with us until she's ready to start the next chapter of her life, whatever and whenever that might be. She's got classes picked, and is looking into the Women's Rec League for hockey team when the season starts, so she'll be all set on that front. Now the big news. Tanya drove down to my house this morning. Bill and I had some very loud, very angry words when he drove down last night after I chose the nuclear option in the family group chats, so she actually waved a white flag from her car when she pulled up. I shooed the dogs away and went out to talk to her, brought her out a muffin, and we had a bit of a chat. Allegedly, Bill was threatening to kick Alice out to scare her straight, and that they weren't actually going to kick her out, and they were caught off guard when we showed up on the morning of her birthday. I told her that she was missing the point, and that I'm not sure if I could use small enough words or short enough sentences to explain it to her if she thought that was the problem. She cried. She peeled out of my driveway at Mach 7 and has been radio silent since, which I'm currently enjoying. My wife won't let me play video games for 30 minutes a day. So I, 37 male, work as a service manager for a high-volume dealer, and I'm out of the house for 12 hours a day. I leave at 6 a.m. and I don't get home until 6 p.m. for 5 days a week. My wife, who's 33, gets upset when I get home, and after eating dinner, I want to get a couple of rounds of Call of Duty in. My wife is a stay-at-home mom with our 18-month-old and thinks it's absolutely criminal that I want to get some decompression time at the end of the day. My daughter is still in the mommy all the time phase, so she prefers to spend more time with my wife than I. Usually when I get home, I will eat dinner, do whatever honey-do's she has for me, and then play for a little. After I'm done, I will join them and spend my time with family, which usually is her watching a movie or show, and I read the same book to my daughter 10 times. My wife says that even when I'm chilling with them, I spend too much time on my phone. While we are all hanging out, if my daughter is asking for my attention, I will stop what I'm doing and do whatever she's asking me to do. Whenever she wants to go back to mommy, I will browse Twitter or Reddit, since I usually have absolutely zero interest in what she's watching. She accuses me of being absent and not present, since I don't focus all of my free time on her and the baby. Also, side note, she's currently 20 weeks pregnant. So, am I the jerk? Edit. I get up at 5 a.m. and usually fall asleep at 9:30 to 10 p.m. My wife and daughter nap through the day, so when I'm sleeping, they're usually awake for another hour or two. Second edit. It has been confirmed that I am indeed the jerk. Thanks for all the constructive suggestions, y'all. Time to work on adjusting my mindset. Third edit. Although I do see how I can improve, it does seem like some more background is needed on my home and work situation. I literally took this job and all that came with it because my wife decided she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. The original plan was for her to go back to work after our daughter was born, but during her maternity leave, she decided she would rather stay home until our baby was school-aged. During that time, she also decided she wanted another baby. I've done everything to try to accommodate her wishes. I took the job, dropped my jiu-jitsu and gym time since I don't have time to go anymore, and really only have the one hobby now that I can do from home. My wife and I's childhoods were similar, raised by single mothers in a low-income neighborhood in LA. Now we have a nice home in a very nice part of a beautiful city. I've struggled and grinded on my own since I was 17, and I'm awfully proud of the life I've managed to build. My wife has always hated gaming, even before the babies, but it's always been a hobby of mine since I was a kid. I didn't have a whole lot growing up, but I had a Nintendo, and instead of messing around on the streets, I would come home and play that to stay out of trouble. The people on this subreddit are absolutely merciless. I've even received messages on how I'm disgusting or I'm a piece of trash and I should go to heck. That's insane. My wife picks our 2 family destination vacations every year, and on weekends, we're either spending time visiting her family or going camping. Can I be more attentive? Definitely. Is our marriage and life in absolute shambles? Definitely not. I will always be willing to learn and evolve as a person. I've wanted to be a father since I can remember, and will always try to be the best one I can, but I'm still human and still flawed. You're the jerk. You may work 12 hours a day, but you're a dad 24 hours a day. You have 4 competing interests: your family, your job, sleep, and your personal time. Right now, you're giving half of your time to your job. Then you have to divide the remainder of time between sleep, family, and yourself. You can't really take much time from sleep. I'll assume you sleep about 6 hours. Now you have 4 hours for yourself and your family. Take an hour for yourself, 3 hours for your family. Is that enough time? Are you happy being a father and husband for only 3 hours a day? Compare that with your wife. She's a stay-at-home mom 24 hours a day. She's always on call. She constantly has a kid attached to her. Even when your daughter's asleep, your wife can't get too into something because your daughter could wake up at any time. Honestly, your household sounds very stressed. You're stretching yourself thin. Your wife has no reprieves. It's easy for me to say, you need a lot less demanding job, especially if you want more you time. The 12-hour workday and stay-at-home mom isn't making either of you happy. Your wife is telling you that she needs adult attention after spending all day with a baby. When you're there, you're constantly doing everything you can to engage in escapism. She's telling you, but you aren't listening. The day will come when she doesn't complain to you at all, and it will be because she has already left you in her mind. The only thing left will be the packing. Once it gets to that point, there will be no fixing it. You're the jerk. In these cases, I always suggest the following. Take 5 days vacation time. Let your wife go visit a family member or head to a spa. Then for 5 days, take all the responsibility for your kid. Walking, dressing, cooking, feeding, cleaning up the kitchen, playtime, nap time, cooking lunch, feeding, cleaning up, playtime, nap time, preparing dinner for spouse and your kid, setting the table, feeding, cleaning up, everything. See if you can find some time to do the grocery shopping, laundry, and general cleaning as well. Then get back to us. You're the jerk. Play video games after the baby goes to bed. Your wife needs a break, and I say that as a stay-at-home dad. The reason the baby is fixated on mom is because you aren't spending enough time bonding with it. I get that work is long and hard, but parenting takes priority. Or just like, don't play video games every day. I'm sure parents also can't watch their favorite movies or shows or do other hobbies every day. Why are video games always the thing that gets posted here? Dude has a kid and another one on the way and is on Reddit whining about Call of Duty. This is why I wouldn't date a gamer. I'm sure they aren't all the same, but guys like this seem too common. The escapism associated with gaming is so intense. Not the jerk. I say this as a stay-at-home mom of a 6 and a 2-year-old. My husband works 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, and has done so for years. As a good wife and mother, once he's home, I just want him to relax from his long day. I don't need a break from my kids. Parenting is not a job the way people try to make it out to be. It's a choice and a lifelong commitment. If you're lucky enough to have a man who's willing to work long hours to provide for his family, you need to treat him right, or another woman will. I make sure to have dinner ready when hubby gets home and that the house is nice and clean. People really exaggerate how hard it is to be a stay-at-home mom, and I'm honestly so glad I'm not a man. If I was expected to work long hours, then come home and take over for mom because she needs a break from her kids, I don't think I would have even wanted to have a family. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. How dare someone want 30 minutes to themselves after working for 12 hours a day? Don't you just love Reddit? Ticking off the base commander. When I was 20, I got drafted into the Army. I live in the Netherlands, and this happened in the 80s. I got trained to be an ambulance driver. 2 months of general training and how to drive a Land Rover, and 2 months of medical training. After that, I was ready to take on any medical emergency that came my way. After my training, I got placed in a staff support platoon, a mismatch of different roles that are there to support the higher Army staff in whatever they need. Make coffee, admin, drive them around, tech support, etc. I was their ambulance driver. It was probably helpful when we were at war, but they had no use for me during peacetime. After I got settled on the base where I was stationed, I was called in by my lieutenant, telling me I had been volunteered to work at the small local military post on our base. I was okay with it as it gave me something to do during the time I had to serve in the Army. It was a small post with a clinic, one permanent doctor, and one drafted out of medical school, and several other grunts like me. Downstairs was our clinic and a few rooms to treat patients. Upstairs, about 12 beds for patients who were sick, but not bad enough that they had to go to a real hospital. We worked at the clinic and took care of the patients upstairs, and maybe 2 to 3 times a week, I had to pull out with the ambulance we used. More often than not, for a planned trip to transport a patient to or from an actual hospital. I started with the rank of soldier, and I was expected to end my 1-year career at the rank of corporal. As you can imagine from the title, that never happened. I did not hate working at the post. On the contrary, I actually felt like I did something useful. And while I was stationed at the post, I learned many practical medical skills, having other soldiers to practice on. But it was a waste of my time. I wanted to start my career in IT, and this was holding me back. I also did not care much about hierarchy or ranks. I respected my fellow Army men and women for what they were, their actions, and how they treated others, not by the number of bars, stars, or stripes. And being an actual medic on our base, I got away with that. We had no roll calls, and I slept in a 2-person bedroom instead of the 12-person one my platoon mates had to use. No inspections, no military training, and wearing white instead of green. Anyways, on to the malicious compliance. I was tending to a patient at the clinic. He and his buddy had walked into a door, their words, and it had a glass window that shattered and cut them both up. One was pretty bad, and he was treated by our doctor in one of the rooms as he needed quite a few stitches. I had to stay in the clinic. And as the other soldier only had minor cuts, I treated him on the spot as no other medical staff was available at that time. The slightly larger cuts I glued shut. For others, a band-aid would suffice. He was sitting in one of the chairs, and I was on one knee in front of him, taking care of a cut on his leg as I heard somebody walk into the clinic. Without looking up, as I was holding a glued cut together with my fingers until it had set, I politely asked to please have a seat and that I would be right there. Colonel, do you know who I am? I am the base commander, Colonel so-and-so. Yes, he actually said that. I can still hear it in my head 35 years later. His booming, indignant voice, full of air and how important he was. I was not impressed at all, mostly annoyed by his attitude, and told him, "Congratulations. Please have a seat, and I'll get to you once I finish treating the cut that I'm working on." That was not what he wanted to hear, and he started chewing me out. Finally, I was done with the cut, let go of my fingers, and got up. Ignoring his barrage, I asked him how I could help. "Colonel, I need to speak to the doctor. I have an appointment." "Okay, not an emergency." I explained to the colonel that the doctor was treating a patient who needed urgent medical attention and that he will have to wait until the doctor finishes his treatment. He has none of it and tells me how he does not have the time to wait. Then he orders me to tell the doctor that his 3 p.m. appointment is waiting for him. I knew the doctor would drop everything and come running to the colonel if he got wind of who it was that was waiting for him. He did not have much of a spine, and his career was primarily based on the colonel's input and assessment of him. But the colonel had given me an order, and I had to do it. So I went to the treatment room and put my head in. The doctor was busy stitching up the more injured soldier, and I complied with the colonel's order. Me: "Doctor, your 3 p.m. appointment has arrived." The doctor, not realizing or remembering who the 3 p.m. appointment was, told me irritably to have the patient wait until he's finished, and that it could be another 5 to 10 minutes. He repeated what he had told me several times before, to only disturb him for emergencies. I go back to the colonel and tell him that the doctor's still busy treating the other patient and would be available in about 10 minutes. The colonel was not happy to hear that and told me to go get the doctor now. I told the colonel I had explicit instructions to only disturb the doctor in case of an emergency and that his appointment was not an emergency. He would have to wait. He grumbled a bit, but in the end sat down until the doctor arrived, and he started berating the doctor about how precious his time was and how he had made him wait. The doctor apologized and almost groveled as they moved into the doctor's office. I had to go upstairs for something, and the colonel had already left after I got down. I did get a good ear washing from the doctor, telling me I should have mentioned to him that it was the colonel who was waiting for him. I argued that it should not matter who was waiting if he was treating a patient who was bleeding all over the place, and that he told me himself that he could only be disturbed for emergencies. I never got that promotion to corporal or even soldier first class. Still worth it. I shut off their internet and it'll cost them $1,000 to turn it back on. I work for a major internet service provider in sales and customer service. If you live in the US, you've probably used this company or have definitely heard of it and how bad it is. I try my best to be helpful and as knowledgeable as possible to help people, and I'm always friendly to my customers. Often, I go out of my way to help people and have even taken time on my days off following up with higher-ups in the company, making sure issues get resolved quickly and properly. People suck. I see it every day. I get people who are unjustifiably upset at the company and not me, so I try my best to help. Some people don't understand I'm not the company. I'm just some guy who works there trying my darn best for crappy pay. When people come to me and from the jump are nasty, belligerent, insulting me, or just straight up screaming at me, thinking that they're gonna get helped, I'm not gonna help them at all. I had a customer come in, throw a modem on the floor as hard as possible, and scream at me because customer service said he had to return his rented modem in person since he didn't want to ship it. I returned the modem, but when I went to change the code to customer-owned equipment in his account, I just hit the disconnect button instead and set the date for 3 weeks ahead. After doing it once, I decided anyone who got violent or insulted me would get shut off too. Sometime in early October, I had a customer come in fuming mad because his cable box stopped working. It was old, maybe from 2004 or 2005, so understandably, it needed to be replaced. I got him a new box, answered his questions about setup, and sent him home after I explained it contained a lot of new features, streaming capabilities, and even a remote you can talk to. It didn't work out as easily as it should have. This customer didn't understand that this cable box used a different interface than his nearly 20-year-old box. Everything looks different. From the menus to the guides, it's a whole new layout. He came back livid. I got called every name under the sun, about a dozen times. I told him I'd have an older style box sent to him in 2 days and that it should work the same as his old one. He said he was leaving for vacation in a week for 2 months and that it better show up before he left. He went on and on about how he's wealthy and I'm just some store worker who will never be able to afford to do half the things he does. Even after finishing with him, he spent 5 minutes wandering our store, just finding nasty things to say to me while I just smiled and told him to have a nice day. After he left, I noticed his contract had been renewed. 2 years, and it's $10 per month left if you cancel. So I put a disconnect order in for 11/1. I can't wait until this guy gets his service shut off and gets a bill for $230 plus his normal monthly cost of $265 and a non-returned equipment fee of $150 per cable box. He had 5 boxes. He's going to come back from vacation with no cable, no internet, no home phone, and service that will require an install to set back up again since I put a cable disconnect order in with maintenance. The estimated bill is $1,257. I marked the address as currently non-serviceable and high risk for default. It'll cost him a $250 deposit to get services set up, and it'll take him weeks of back and forth just to get his address serviceable again. Luckily for me, I will no longer be working there when he gets back from his vacation and realizes what happened. We're the only ISP you can get in the area. 0 other options, and cell service is spotty at best. He's going to have to jump through endless hoops and spend all that money to ever have internet again. If he ever happens to read this, forget you. I hope you never know happiness, you old miserable jerk. Edit. Just some background information on this whole situation since I got some real nasty DMs in the last hour or so. To the people that said, "You're the reason why he was so mad. You messed something up, obviously, and it's your responsibility to fix it." This guy was mad that the guide looked different. He had a full-out red-in-the-face scream session over this little minute thing. A grown man in his mid-40s yelling at a short 20-year-old guy who's just trying to do their job and is being friendly. Imagine every time Apple changed the calendar app, you walked into the Apple store and blew up at someone. Seems unreasonable, right? Even after appeasing this guy and finding out how to get him some older equipment again, he walked around the store messing with every display, calling me names and saying mean things about my coworkers who had gone on lunch right as he was walking in. After telling my coworkers about it, one asked, "Is it the guy with the green BMW?" Apparently, this dude has come in to scream at employees on a few occasions over the last 6 months or so, one of which he screamed in the face of was the sweetest and most patient people I've ever worked with. A week prior to me dealing with him, this guy had come in to harass my coworkers yet again because his cable box had no picture, the one I replaced. My coworker looked up his account, realized the box was pushing 15 years old, and told him to bring it into us so we can give him a new one. He blew up on them, got aggressive, and was told not to return. He didn't abide by that, obviously. He had notes in his account over months from various stores, customer service reps, and a billing manager about how mean he is. My coworkers all know this guy by name and will adamantly refuse him service. The other 3 stores in the area have been made aware and even got CCTV footage of this guy from us. When he came to me the first time, he was rude, saying all kinds of nasty things about my coworkers, and saying how if I don't make him happy, he's going to disconnect his service. I obliged that request later, albeit without his permission. In the process of me disconnecting his account, I made sure it would be as difficult as possible to regain access, made notes in his account saying the customer was non-serviceable, and made sure to remove all of his login info from his account as well. These notes do not say who they were left by, and the system does not show who created the disconnect. In the disconnect order, it doesn't specify who did it, only when. I did this hours later, after he had left, and after he had called customer service multiple times. He had called customer service maybe 25 times that month total, so unless they somehow pull every overseas call, they're out of luck for finding me. Not that I care if they do, since I'm gone next week. My boss was well aware I did this and even gave me props since he's been harassing employees for months now. This is the second time this year I've left a retail job over how awful people are. In June, I had a full breakdown working for yet another terrible overpriced company after a customer began harassing me with their friends and family via social media and calling my phone all hours of the night after they got my number somehow. I liked my job. I went to work at a place where I had a friend with me, so I'd actually enjoyed working there. People like this jerk ruined it for me. I've been accosted by customers who recognized me months later out in public, yelling at me over things I didn't do. I've had people look me up on social media since my name was on their receipts. I've had people wait outside of where I work to harass me when I got off. I had coworkers calling me on my day off because someone was so upset they got a late fee and only wanted me to deal with it. I don't get to do a job I actually enjoyed because it's been ruined for me by the nastiest people on the planet. People like this guy are why I no longer have any social media with my name on it. Spend time every month Googling my name to make sure those sketchy websites with your address don't have my information for the 10th time, and had to change my phone number twice this year. The company I work for is a nasty, monopolizing giant that couldn't care less about its employees or its customers. Don't mess with people who have access to important things in your life. This dude lives in an area that I know has absolutely zero cell coverage, and now he can sit at home, cut off from the rest of the world. It's like being rude to a waiter. They will spit in your food. If you think I'm a jerk, go right ahead. But just know, if you're rude to a retail worker who has access to your utilities, it may not end well for you. Edit 2. Just got back into work and pulled this account back up for giggles. The location is marked as non-serviced, like entirely. When I pull his account up and click on the address, it says, "Address not serviceable, no connection to premises." The system for setting up new accounts refuses his address, and the only thing that can see his account at this point is the equipment management system. Everything else is gone, like gone. This dude ain't getting internet again anytime soon. He can have a fun time trying to convince CenturyLink to do a new install in the middle of absolutely nowhere. In the address notes, there's also technician confirmed non-connect, address not serviceable, no future plans for install. Looks like what I did worked, and the time it'll take for someone to notice will just cement the fact this dude most likely will never get internet service at his house again. Once a tech validates no service for an address, it's done. They won't even bother trying in the future. This is not okay by you. While no customer has the right to treat any service worker like that, you cannot just terminate their contract because they were rude. You are a huge jerk. My goodness, OP, you are a petty jerk. And it's the actions of people like you, putting unwanted and unasked for disconnection orders onto people's accounts, who make the customers angry, and then they mistreat the poor innocent customer support person they deal with the next time. You are a power-tripping jerk, and the angry customers are karma for your actions. Forget him and forget anyone who acts like that. They deserve nothing but misery and loneliness until they learn how to treat people. ETA. This person had it coming for a long time. No business should be obligated to provide service to people like that. I won't allow my staff to take mistreatment like this from customers, much less so after living through a lockdown and really seeing some people for who they are. Dating myself, but to quote Nels Olson, that guy should be kept in a cage and fed with a stick. Well, what do you think? Did OP take it too far or not? Please let us know. Looks like that customer messed around and found out. Am I the jerk for refusing to forgive my sister and not inviting her to my wedding? I, 30 male, have a sister, Julie, 25 female, and she's in line to inherit our great-grandmother's ring as the firstborn female through our mom's side. My girlfriend, Laura, who's 26, saw the ring and thought it was gorgeous and said that one day she'd like to have a ring just like that. Now, I know what you're thinking if you've ever seen other Reddit posts, but Laura isn't the type to actually expect me to give her that exact ring, just something like it. I wanted to propose to Laura, and because I knew that she wanted a ring just like that one, I decided to pay to have a custom one made. I showed the jewelry maker pictures, but they said that it would be better if they could actually see it in person. I went to my mom, the current holder of the ring, explained the situation, and even showed the invoice before asking if I could borrow it. She agreed, and so I took the ring. The jewelry maker held on to it for about 48 hours, and when I was about to head back to my parents' place with the ring, I got a phone call that Laura was in an accident and at the hospital. I rushed over to the hospital with her family and was horrified to hear that she needed immediate surgery. I honestly couldn't really think of anything else other than my girlfriend and stayed with her mom and sister the entire time. I was so relieved when the doctor said that she was going to be okay and agreed to drive Laura's sister back to the house and then come back. I dropped Laura's sister off and went back to my place to shower when I saw the police there waiting for me with my parents and Julie. Julie then ran over to me, calling me a thief and demanding her ring. Apparently, Julie found out that Mom gave me the ring and assumed that I lied about just borrowing it. My parents tried to calm her down, but when I wouldn't pick up, bad cell reception at the hospital and my phone had died. Laura called the police. I handed Julie the ring right then and there and told my family about Laura before walking into my apartment. I also saw that Julie had trashed me all over social media, but almost everyone was apologetic when I and Laura's sister explained everything. Julie took down her posts, but never apologized. I proposed to Laura once she had recovered. She said yes, and we're preparing for the wedding. Laura asked my other sister, Annie, who's 21, to be a bridesmaid, and when Julie asked if she was going to be one, Laura and I informed her that she wasn't invited. Julie is calling me bitter and saying that I had no reason to still be angry with her. My parents think I'm being too harsh by not at least inviting her, but I'm still angry. Am I the jerk? Edit, because I keep seeing this in the comments or in the DMs. 1. Julie took down the posts the following day she got the ring back. 2. Julie thinks that I made myself look guilty by not responding to the multiple calls and texts that I received before she called the police. 3. I'm not sure what Julie said or did to convince the police to come with her, but all I know is that she was trying to report a theft. Also, my parents were already talking to the police when I arrived, trying to explain the situation. It's not like my mom had physical proof of ownership, it's just a verbal agreement and understanding. So the police had to ask questions and mediate the situation. But once I handed the ring back, the issue was considered dropped. I don't know if Julie got in trouble for calling the cops, and frankly, I didn't care. Not the jerk. Introduce your parents and Julie to the 4-part apology. 1. I'm sorry that I. 2. It was wrong because. 3. In the future I will. 4. Will you forgive me? Julie also needs to post a retraction and public apology repeatedly on every social media platform she has. Tell your parents that you have no way of knowing if Julie realizes what she did was wrong, as she's made no effort towards reparation. Because she thinks so little of you that she assumes you would steal from her. You can't imagine why she would be interested in attending your wedding. Not the jerk. Your sister is a greedy, self-entitled individual. She hadn't even been given the ring yet by your mother. I do question, though, why your mother bothered telling her when you just borrowed it. Not the jerk. You did nothing wrong. Julie owes you a huge apology for calling you a thief, calling the cops on you, and smearing you all over the internet. You can inform your parents that this is the condition for her getting invited. Karen refuses to move her car, now she needs a new one. The recent storms and fallen branches and trees I've been having in my area lately reminded me of one of my most favorite instances of karma that I've ever witnessed. As with my previous stories, this occurred at a hotel I was working at in upstate New York. It was August of 2011, and we were hunkering down in the hotel for the arrival of Hurricane Irene. We were getting all the necessary safety items and emergency lights in place in anticipation of the storm knocking out power at some point in the middle of the night or during the day. The night the storm hit us, I came in a few hours early before my night audit shift to help with any of the prep and setup. While I was standing at the front desk, the local police showed up and asked us if we could clear all of the cars out of the driveway in front of the hotel so that if emergency vehicles needed to access the hotel, there weren't any cars blocking their way. I had my valet guys move the cars over to the large parking lot off to the side and park them square in the middle, away from the trees and branches. As I was watching them move cars, a guest rolls up and drives up in her Porsche right into the driveway and parked it along the side. She was walking with a purpose, and before I even spoke to her, I knew what her response was going to be. Me. "Excuse me, ma'am." Porsche driver. "What?" Me. "We need you to move your vehicle over to that parking lot so we can keep the driveway clear for emergency services. I can have one of my valet guys move it for you." "I'm not moving my car. It stays right where I can see it." Me. "Ma'am, this isn't really an option. It needs to be moved or the police will have it moved." "If you or the police so much as lay a finger on my car, I'm suing all of you." She stormed off to the bar, and that was the last we saw of her that afternoon. The police came back to check on us and saw the car in the driveway. They said, "Thought we asked you guys to clear the driveway." I relayed the story to them and said I could point the lady out at the bar. They just rolled their eyes and decided it wasn't worth the hassle. Later that night, as I was running the night audit reports, the wind picked up, letting myself and the overnight maintenance guy know that the storm was approaching. We stood outside under the Porsche and watched as the rain and wind started coming in harder and harder. At that point, a police car pulled up and parked in front of us just to make sure we were okay. We asked him if he needed a top-up on his coffee since we had brewed a fresh pot, and he took us up on that offer. As he got out of his car, the wind began breaking off branches on the smaller trees across the road and surrounding the parking lot where we had moved guest cars. We went inside the lobby to watch as some of the trees began to sway and break, when all of a sudden we heard snap, boom, crash, beep. One of the largest branches from the tree next to our driveway had snapped off and landed square on the jerk's Porsche. The three of us watching let out a simultaneous, "Holy smokes." We sat there, stunned, when the maintenance guy spoke up. You're the police. Shouldn't you go out there and assess or something?" Policeman responded, "Yeah, probably should write up a report on that." We were sitting there debating whether we should call the lady in her room when the power went out, and we had to abandon the thought and go wake up the employees that were sleeping at the hotel so they could help set up glow sticks and lights on all of the floors. As the sun started coming up, some of the employees started walking the floor to collect the glow sticks and lights when one of them saw the Karen come out of her room and walk over to a window overlooking the driveway. She ran down to the front desk as soon as she heard a guest yell, "What the heck?" We anticipated the guest storming down to the driveway to survey the damage on her car, so we went into hiding, but made sure we had a great view of her walking around her car. She came storming back into the lobby and demanded to speak to someone in charge. By that point, our GM had already been briefed on the entire situation and was well and truly ready for whatever BS this lady was going to throw at him. I'm not sure what happened after that, other than a tow truck had to come and pick up her car. I believe she did try to sue, but there were enough witnesses to corroborate our story that she was asked to move her car for that very reason, and she didn't comply. Now that I make $300,000 a year, my wife wants to combine incomes. I, 31 male, recently completed my PhD in postdoc position. I didn't make much money during that period, about $26,000 annually for my PhD and about $32,000 while I was working as a postdoc. My wife, who's 30, who I married about when I got my PhD, makes a ton more money than I do, or made a ton more money than me. She made about $100,000 per year while we were together, so quite a bit of a gap. She also came up with the idea that we should put some of our income for ourselves and some for our family, and this would be proportional to our income to keep it fair. She always got a bit fancier stuff than me, and I was pretty jealous. I didn't voice it to her, which I guess I should have, but I don't understand how she never realized it. I don't want to reveal too much information, but while I was working as a postdoc, I made connections with a couple people who were starting up a company. Long story short, last year I made $300,000 without including my stake in the company. It's obviously risky, but I think the risk has paid off for me at least. I did get a Tesla Model S, which I'm entirely paying with my own money, including the insurance, and I'm starting to buy more expensive stuff for me too, and it honestly feels amazing. Now she's asking if we should just combine our incomes and each get the same amount of our money, which feels like total BS to me. She wants to eat her cake and have it too, and I just said no, she wasn't being fair. She then went on a spiel about equity, which I honestly did not listen to. I mean, she is allowed to make that suggestion, but I'm allowed to say no, right? Am I the jerk? Edit. I pay 3/4 of our bills now. I lived on my own. Housing was paid for by the university when I was a grad student. Holy cow, you're the jerk. First, you wouldn't tell her how you felt about the arrangement. Got angry when she couldn't read your mind. Now you're refusing to even listen to her? You're an adult. Communicate. Not the jerk. But you guys can probably start paying half of the bills each. No more of this proportionate to your income BS. Everyone sucks here. You're married. You have both looked at the other and said, yeah, this is the person I want to spend my life with in a partnership of equals. Then you both have been doing your absolute best to make it as unequal as possible. You're the jerk. You expected your wife to be a mind reader and resented the fact that she bought nicer things than you. If you wanted something you couldn't afford, you could have asked, and if she loved you, she probably would have said no problem. You were working on the PhD and postdoc for what, 8 years? During that time, she supported you, kept a roof over your head and food on the table. She made it possible for you to concentrate on your studies and earn your PhD. The only thing you're going to earn now is a divorce. Hope that's what you want. You're the jerk. Of course you want to hog all of the money now that you're the one making more. Why are men so selfish and greedy when it comes to money? Also, buying yourself a new Tesla? Did you buy her one too? You must be a slave to that ghoul Elon. Figures with how greedy you are. Let me guess, you order everything on Amazon too instead of supporting local businesses? But yay, my capitalism, right? You could have easily gotten a Civic or something and got your wife something nicer, like a BMW for putting up with all your BS and cheapskateism. Cheapskateism? The good thing is now, when she leaves you, she can take you to the cleaners for alimony with that big boy salary that you got lucky with. You're probably the kind of jerk that makes people call you doctor, even though you're just a rich boy whose parents paid for his schooling. Wish I'd had a rich mommy and dada to buy me a PhD. Instead, I'm stuck working my butt off at Dollar General for $7.50 an hour just to feed my kids McDonald's every night, which I know isn't good for their diabetes, but it's literally all we can afford right now. 90% of my salary goes to paying for daycare so that I can go to work. It's almost like it cancels itself out. And people wonder why we steal from our jobs. Any cash transaction I get, you bet your butt I'm voiding the transaction and pocketing that money. But what would you know about struggles, rich boy? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Why do I feel like we're at the zoo when we read Reddit comments? They refused me an office. I complied. They regretted it. I got my first grown-up job while I was finishing my bachelor's degree. I was just getting started in a highly technical and emerging field. Very few people back then were doing this kind of work, and I seemed to have an aptitude for it, which is probably why I got a job before I had any credentials. The department I was hired for was brand new and had the potential to take customers from other departments, while also generating net new business. Interestingly, the other departments had been offered the opportunity to start the service themselves, but refused, even actively trying to prevent it from happening. That's the reason I ended up in a malicious compliance situation. The leaders of all the other departments conspired to prevent me from getting an office. I didn't understand at first, because at that age, I didn't imagine professionals did petty, immature things. When I realized what was happening, I knew they'd get exposed if I went along with it. So I happily did my job wherever I could find a place, which often ended up being in the mailroom, where lots of people would notice. I hoped, maybe, that leaders would start to feel guilty or annoyed and change their minds. or they'd be caught by their bosses. Either way, problem solved for me without a fight. Little did I know how well it would go. I started to be well liked by a lot of the leaders because I helped them with their computers. There was one leader who still inexplicably hated me. I never spoke with him, not even one word, but he continued to insist I did not need an office. I wasn't even the level of secretary, according to him, which I took to be a dig at my lack of a degree. I heard about him saying that from a friend who was in the meeting when they talked about changing their minds. It's too bad for them they didn't change their minds, because the president came through the mailroom multiple times and finally stopped, clearly annoyed. "Why don't you work in your office?" That was my golden moment. I had complied politely with not having an office. I sweetly told the president, "I don't have an office." "What? Why not?" "There isn't room. No space available." "According to whom?" "Mr. So-and-so." "But you've been working here for what, 3 months? They could have found space for you by now." Oh, the president was beet red at that point. I just smiled and said my understanding is there is no space. The president literally stomped upstairs to the offices of Mr. So-and-so. I distinctly heard the yelling from downstairs. People outside probably even heard it. The president came and brought me upstairs to the conference room where the leaders were all seated looking down. There was a pile of keys on the table. I was afraid at that point. Was he having me pick someone's office to take? While that might have been sweet revenge, it wouldn't have been good for my working relationships with any of them. But no, she handed me a key to the conference room and said, "This is your office." She scooped up the rest of the keys, which I learned later were all of their copies of the key to the conference room, and said, "Your office is the largest office on campus, even bigger than mine. Enjoy." And she walked out. That was probably the best drop the mic moment I've ever seen in my life, and the story ends with my compliance not only winning me that office, but all the other leaders, except Mr. So-and-so, becoming great colleagues. Edit, follow up. I mentioned in the comments that there was another chapter to this story that I guess sort of puts a bow on it. One sunny day, about 6 months later, Mr. So-and-so passed me on the stairs outside the building. I was leaving and said good morning to him. We were the only 2 people, or so I thought. I wouldn't pass by a coworker like that without a polite greeting. I was in my office, quietly analyzing some data about an hour later, when, once again, the furiously red-faced president stormed into my office. I swear she was 12 feet tall in her anger. She demanded, "What's going on with you and Mr. So-and-so?" My heart was racing at probably 150 beats per minute, and I couldn't comprehend her question. "What do you mean, what's going on? I have no idea what you're talking about." I started to imagine she was accusing me of having a relationship with this man, and just, ew. She said she wanted to know why he just said what he said about me. I was perplexed. "I'm sorry, I still have no idea what you're talking about. I never have more than a greeting to say good morning worth of conversation with Mr. So-and-so. I can't think of anything whatsoever that he would have said about me." She told me that my sibling had just burst into her office raging about Mr. So-and-so. Turns out when I walked by him and continued on, the next person he encountered was my sibling, but he didn't know that. We both worked for the same company, but I was married and we had different last names. If he bothered to get to know me at all, he would have known that. He walked right up to my sibling and says, "There goes that jerk with her head in her backside." He assumed, I guess, that everyone else hated me too. He barely knew my brother, but felt comfortable saying that. So my brother walked right into the president's office, interrupting a meeting, and repeated what Mr. So-and-so said. The president assumed that I was aware, but my brother hadn't gotten to me yet, and I didn't realize just how much Mr. So-and-so hated me. I told the president I genuinely didn't believe it was really about me. It could be because we never spoke. It had to be about what I represented, which was a major change to the organization. She walked to his office, then more yelling ensued. Pretty soon, they were back in my office. He apologized, and I repeated what I told the president, that I didn't believe it was really about me. Mr. So-and-so agreed. Later on, I had a project with him, and he started to trust me. We ended up being able to work together with no further issues. Insane Karen tries to make me her son's girlfriend. This happened about a year ago when I was 14 over winter break, and I was on vacation in Japan. Hence, this will all be roughly translated from Japanese. I was at the park sitting by myself on a bench, drinking hot chocolate and listening to music when this guy tapped me on the shoulder. For the sake of anonymity, we'll call him Ethan. "Ethan, hi." I was in the zone from listening to music, So it took me about 10 seconds to register there was a human behind me. Me. Hello. Ethan. Sorry if this comes off as creepy, but there's ice skating around here, and I don't really want to go alone. Would you mind going with me? I can pay for you. I looked at this kid for a second before agreeing. He was cute, so I was surprised he didn't have anyone else to go with him. Me. Sure, but do you mind if I ask my dad first? Ethan. Sure, no problem. So I called my dad, and he just asked me a few questions about the area, which I relayed on to him, then back to my dad a couple times. After my dad agreed, we started walking and talking, though it was only like a 2-minute walk. We arrived, paid for ice skate rentals, and started skating when suddenly I hear the voice of what seems to be a nice lady. Entitled Mom. Ethan, sweetie, you forgot your gloves. She started running over to him, so I decided to do a lap to let them talk for a second when I hear Ethan yell to me. Ethan. Mitsuki, come meet my mom. Me. Sure. I skated over, and as I did, I noticed he was whispering something to her. So then I skated over, and she just kind of looked at me. Entitled Mom, looking at Ethan. Why are you talking to this American girl? I told you, you can only date Asian girls. I was surprised for a couple of reasons. One, I may not be as Asian as they are, but it's obvious I am Asian. Two, he called me by my name, Mitsuki, a very obvious and fairly common Japanese name. Three, he called me over in Japanese, to which I replied in Japanese. And yet, with all of this, she thought I couldn't understand her. I sat and listened for a second before the mom turned to me and said in the most thick Japanese accent I've ever heard, "Leave my son alone." The son protested for a couple seconds before his mom gave that, "I'm gonna count to 10 look. I just looked at her dead in her eyes. Me. If you need to say something to me, at least make it understandable. I said this in Japanese. Suddenly, Mom turned a shade of red that I've never seen before. She stayed silent for a few seconds before looking at me. You speak Japanese? Me. Yep, I am Japanese. Then, you would be perfect for my son. Me. I'm sorry, what? This lady's entire personality just switched in a nanosecond from go away to date my son. Entitled Mom. You heard me. My son needs a girlfriend, so he's not a loser in class, and a Japanese girl like you would do great. Me. I'm sorry, but I was instantly cut off. Ethan was just standing still. It doesn't matter. Look at my son. He's so handsome. Ethan. Mom, shut up. She doesn't want to. Leave her alone. You brat. I'm just trying to help you, so you don't end up as a disappointment like your older brother. They kind of yelled back and forth for a minute, while I sat there like a side character in a movie, just watching. You will date him, right? Me. I don't live in Japan. Also, I like women. I said that with zero emotion, because I was tired of this lady. No more words were exchanged. Ethan was dragged away while apologizing and telling me to just return the skates when I was done. Am I the jerk for refusing to change our custody agreement? My ex and I share 50-50 custody of our son, who's 9. Basically, we have him every other week. She also has a 5-year-old from her second marriage. They're divorced too, and the divorce arrangement is like ours, except she gets the 5-year-old on the week that I have the 9-year-old. Her second ex-husband refused to work around our custody agreement, so my ex asked me to change ours. This is a huge deal, and the reality is that I cannot just sign off on it. If I just say okay, then she'll start asking for more accommodations at my expense. I told her to think about what she's going to offer me to go along with this plan. She got mad that I wouldn't just do it. Honestly, if she would have offered me something like an extra holiday, then I'd just go along with it. She even said that she wasn't going to pay my legal fees because a judge has to sign off on any custody changes in our state. Now she's upset, and I don't care. Edit. Both boys are just as happy being together than not. Why? Because they both get to have their parent all to themselves, and my relationship with my son is more important than with his brother. I work in a family law office, and dealing with jerks like you is the worst part of the job by far. Instead of doing what's in the best interest for your kids, like preserving a healthy co-parenting relationship that will make your kids' lives materially better, you're choosing to be a major jerk. Worst of all, it's the kids that usually suffer the most when you have a parent being a grade A jerk like you are. You're the jerk all the way. Your "forget you, got mine" attitude disgusts me. I'm sort of curious about one thing, as I don't know family practice. If OP continues to be obstinate, doesn't the ex have the option to petition the court for a change in the custody agreement? Seems to me that if that is so, then OP is setting himself up for some unneeded legal fees down the road. In most states, yes, she could also use this thread to show the judge his attitude. You're the jerk. Your son should be growing up with his sibling. He's a human being, not a bargaining chip. Your relationship with your son is more important than his relationship with his brother? Read that back to yourself, OP. Hard, you're the jerk. Instead of trying to establish a healthy co-parenting dynamic, you're just doing this to be petty. And I bet you're doing it so your ex doesn't have a week off. This isn't a competition. Let your son spend time with his brother. There will come a day where you need your ex's support. This is very short-sighted. You're the jerk. My parents were divorced, and I distinctly remember my dad being a jerk. And there was a period of time my brother would be with my dad and I would be with my mom. And then we would switch, and I never got to see my brother. I hated my dad for it. You sound just like him, a narcissistic jerk who only cares about yourself, and your son will resent you and not have much of a relationship with you as an adult. Not the jerk. Look, man, you don't have to change any custody agreement just because she's pressuring you to do so. If the roles were flipped and you were the mother and the father was the one trying to pressure you into changing custody so he could have a full week away from both of his kids, all these Reddit fools would be siding with you, saying to not let him pressure and control you. You're honestly doing her a favor by not switching up. If you did switch weeks and she had a whole week off to herself, she'd be popping out another kid before you know it, and based on her relationship history, it would only be a matter of time until man number 3 splits on her too. You can only stay with a train wreck of a person for so long, as you and her second husband realized. Then, she'd have 3 kids that she wants to get rid of instead of 2. Next time she gets a serious boyfriend, if you get the chance, try to let him know what kind of a person she is. The last thing you want is for another innocent dude to end up tied to this crazy like you and her other ex-husband. And to all you Reddit morons who are calling this guy the jerk, I hope you're in the same situation one day. Then again, with the lack of spine that most of you have, you probably would just do whatever she tells you to. Weakness is hilarious. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for throwing my wife a birthday party and upsetting my mom? My wife and I are currently staying with my parents because we just couldn't afford the cost of living in this area. We're both currently looking for better jobs and/or something cheaper, but it is what it is right now. My mom and wife share a birthday, and there aren't words for how much my mom hates this. There was lots of whining in the beginning, jokes about can I just get a new girlfriend, and as of right now, she does her best to avoid my wife the entire week of the shared birthday. Outside of that, she is a decent mother-in-law, mostly pleasant to her, but their relationship is surface level, and they could both do without the other. My mom is currently at home recovering from surgery with a torn ACL, so she isn't doing much this year, though my dad got her cakes, food, and easily $1,000 worth of presents. My wife has been feeling pretty down due to our living situation and some external factors, and I wanted to cheer her up. I asked my dad if we could have some people over. He said yes, but to be fair, I didn't specify it was for a birthday party. I'm not sure he even remembered it was my wife's birthday, as he's totally disinterested in her, and he was in the middle of doing stuff for my mom, who was acting very princessy about her surgery. I invited our closest friends and set up a nice little party for my wife. At some point, my mom did calm down and realize what was going on. I saw her look at the decorations and the cake, and she looked upset. My dad quickly ushered her away and promised that they would go out when she was better, but she said it wouldn't count. My dad came back out and muttered to me that I'm a jerk for doing this and called me insensitive and a mooch. He came out an hour later and shut the party down as he claimed we were being too loud. I don't think we were, but it was getting late, so I didn't mind too much. My wife loved it and had a great birthday. I fully intended on cleaning up myself, but was too tired to do it that night. My mom came down in the morning and saw the thing still up and got upset again. I was in the process of cleaning it and told her not to worry, that I would take care of it. She just glared at me and stormed off. My dad came back down and lost it on me for throwing it in my mom's face that my wife got a birthday party and she didn't, and told me he can't stand me and can't wait for us to leave. I told him they're both being crazy, and my mom doesn't own the date. He shot back that I tricked him as he didn't realize it was a birthday party, to which I laughed and said maybe he should know his own daughter-in-law a bit better. He complained to some family, and now my aunt and her husband are calling me a jerk as well. ETA, to be clear about the mess, my mom only cared because she saw the birthday stuff. She's never in her life cared about a mess. She once threw a handful of glitter in her own living room. I only brought it up to let her know I wasn't planning on leaving it for the housekeeper, as I thought that would be disrespectful. I'm sorry, I disagree with a lot of these people. Not the jerk. Your wife can celebrate her birthday. Your mom doesn't own the date just because she was born first. Like, do people think it's okay for the mom to have always had this problem? You can live with us, but pretend it's not her birthday? I'm just genuinely confused why people are mad at OP when the mom clearly has had issues forever. You need to respect your mother by pretending it's not your wife's birthday or spend more money by using an outside venue. People on this thread. Gentle everyone sucks here. Because I think you're very much not the jerk for throwing your wife a little party, but I get why people are saying you're the jerk for doing so when you knew it would upset your mom while you're living under her roof. Personally, I get the feeling that your folks are super toxic. Looking at your mom's weird, possessive behavior over the birthday date and your dad's ambivalence towards your wife, but what's happening is that you sound very used to the toxicity, kind of used to just tolerating it, thinking less of the parents for it, navigating around it, occasionally revenging yourself upon them for it, etc. This happens when you grow up with toxic family. But the problem is that these little revenges do kind of make a jerk of you, at least to outsiders, hence the you're the jerk judgments here. Have a think about if this could be the case, and have a chat with your wife. Think about whether the financial benefits of staying with your folks are really worth turning you into the kind of people who willfully do things that you know will upset the very people who are putting a roof over your head. You're the jerk. You intentionally asked your dad for permission and chose to be vague because you knew your mom would be displeased. Your mom, who's recovering from major surgery too, whose birthday it also was literally every restaurant in your city or town or within driving distance in nearby cities and towns closed? It's their house, so you need to grow up and show some respect. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his parents? Please let us know. I don't think OP did this to be petty. I think he did it to have a great little birthday party for his wife. His mom sounds like she's got some real issues. But maybe there's more to this story than we're hearing. Maybe there's a reason why she dislikes her daughter-in-law so much. Am I the jerk for letting him and his guy friend be stranded in another city and refusing to pay for their plane tickets to get home? My fiance, 33 male, has a guy best friend that he's known for 16 years. He has cancer and it's terminal. My fiance wanted to take him on a vacation for a couple of days and begged me to basically fund it. I refused, although I felt incredibly guilty after he made me feel bad about it for days. Eventually, he was able to borrow money to go on the vacation. They went and spent 2 days at a sports city. When it was time to return, he called me asking me to pay for their plane tickets to get home. I was taken aback. I asked why I should pay, and he said because they ran out of money and didn't put any aside to get home. I refused and told him it wasn't my problem he didn't save money for the return flight. He started arguing with me, saying I can't let them be stranded in another city when I have the means to help, especially after I refused to help fund the vacation. I said no and that he needed to deal with it on his own. He didn't stop texting me and trying to get me to pay. He and his friend had to eventually return by road, and it took them 8+ hours. He came home and blew up, saying I left them stranded in another city and refused to help, although I had money to pay for their plane tickets. He said that by forcing them to travel by road, I had caused his friend unnecessary exhaustion and turmoil. He called me every name under the sun and said I had no empathy for his friend and that I had tainted the memories of this vacation. Am I the jerk? He's still mad at me, and he says he's in shock by the way I behaved in this situation and the lack of empathy that I displayed. I need to mention something, as a number of people have been asking about it. My fiance is unemployed. That's why he couldn't afford the vacation, although it wasn't expensive. I'm the one working. Money is tight, and yes, paying for the ticket would have strapped me financially since I'm paying for everything. Why on earth are you with this guy? Not the jerk. You can't seriously still be planning to marry this guy, right? Why would someone want to marry this? Unemployed. No judgment, just fact. But chooses to take someone on vacation, fails to book the return flight in advance, fails to budget their funds to pay for a last-minute ticket, strands themselves, then blames their partner for not rescuing them? I have a strong suspicion that fiancé made a forward-thinking decision to not buy a return trip airport plane and then tried to squeeze some funds out of his partner by manipulating them. Fiancé is either very stupid or very manipulative. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. You're not the Make-A-Wish Foundation. If your husband wants to help his friend enjoy his time left, then he needs to fund it. And if he can't, then he needs to find things to do that he can afford. It's not your problem, nor your friend. Not the jerk. Please don't expect him to change when you marry him, because he won't. Do you really want to marry someone this irresponsible? You will constantly get blamed for every problem that he's created. You'll always be the responsible one while he does whatever. Do you want to have to live with that role for the rest of your life? Not the jerk. How do guys like him manage to get girlfriends while I get turned down by every girl I ever ask out? My friends all tell me I'm a good-looking guy and that I'm fun to be around. I make decent money, have my own place and a car. But still, any girl I try talking to, they always turn me down and say they just want to be friends. Edit. I'm sorry if it came off like I feel entitled to anything. I know I'm not, nor is anyone. I just don't understand why nobody seems to want to give me a chance at a relationship. Obviously something's wrong with me since I constantly get turned down. I just can't figure out what it is. Sorry that I sounded like such a creep. Am I the jerk? My boyfriend is upset that I keep washing the towels. My boyfriend works a really physically demanding job and often takes a really long bath after work to ease his sore muscles. I totally encourage him doing this because it really seems to help him after a long day. My issue is I lay out his towel for him, but he uses mine every time. He likes the bath water to be scalding hot, so he sweats profusely and he uses my hanging towel to wipe the sweat from his face and then dries off when he's done with his own towel. I've never mentioned it to him, but after he's done, I just take my towel and throw it in the laundry bin. The other day, we got our water bill in, and it's high. He paid it, but then went to the laundry bin and asked why there were so many towels in it. He accused me of wasting water. I told him that I don't like toweling off with a sweaty towel and tried to joke about the fact that if he stopped wiping his sweaty face off with my towel, then I wouldn't need a new one every day. He actually got really mad and said I shouldn't keep my towel somewhere he could easily access it, and how was he supposed to know? I told him that I'm sure if he didn't take 3 to 4 hour long baths every day, it would probably help with our water bill too, but you don't see me making a stink over it. Now he's upset with me and not talking to me. Am I the jerk? 3 to 4 hour long baths? He's the one wasting the water. I'm sure he has to keep adding water to keep it scalding hot. He goes to work, takes a 3 to 4 hour bath, then what? Goes to sleep? He needs to see a doctor or find a new job if his muscles are that sore. Not the jerk, but how can you live like this? How does he spend 3 to 4 hours of his day in the bathtub? Like, how do you ever see him often enough to fight about this when he's always bathing? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. Plot twist. Boyfriend's actually a mermaid and this is how he deals with his homesickness. Am I the jerk for tipping a Domino's delivery driver? My girlfriend and I order in a lot for date nights for logistical reasons. Like, a lot. She really likes Domino's pizza. It's an easy food for her, and she has texture and sensory issues. I'm not gonna judge. I certainly don't mind anything, whatever she wants to eat. It's hard finding stuff she likes at restaurants that won't upset her stomach or set off the texture thing. She just has a thing where she is the one that has to order the food, and she never does more than 12% tip. Problem is, we've been ordering a lot, and the same guy has been coming the last half dozen times, and he's always been great. Never a problem. Friendly, on time, hot. No issues with the pizza going sideways and being a mess when it arrives, and so on. One time, he even grabbed us an extra thing of garlic dipping sauce, and she wasn't complaining when she used that. When I saw his name yet again this time, it's an unmistakable name. I started thinking. I grabbed a $5 from my wallet and brought it with me when I answered the door. I asked the guy, "Hey, can you accept direct tips, like from me?" And he said yeah, so I offered him the money and took the food. My girlfriend overheard and got on me about being a condescending jerk about the fact being a regular Joe, just trying to make ends meet is hard enough without pity handouts or my savior complex. Plus, she said I was undermining her, which was the big thing, and that she feels I just called her cheap and undervaluing work, despite her having been in retail, but she said that's literally what he gets paid to do. That's the bare minimum, and that's that. It's really messed up date night, and she's super upset with me now. I just wanted to recognize that this guy was doing a lot of work and helpful and always nice to us, that he even goes above what we ask. I don't know, maybe it came across condescending and like I was calling her tip not good enough. Update. Girlfriend and I patched things up. She had gone off the rails due to the realization that she was under-tipping and felt bad about it. Instead of facing that, she said she pushed it to me because it felt like you had done something to make me feel like that when it was me to start with. She reacted badly, she knows it. She even knew it on the night of, but didn't know how to talk that over as well as understanding why she went off so badly. Everything she said, she apologized for. She grew up hearing her dad talk about tipping like that and didn't think she'd let it get to her. She said, "It was like every time I opened my mouth, my dad's words came out." She's ashamed and appalled by the things she said. I pointed out some of the things you all mentioned, definitely not the ones where you guys call their names though, especially the ones about wages. She had no idea that the wages changed on the road, how little reimbursement there was, and never considered the wear and tear aspect. She's also going to talk to her doctor about where to start with a potential ARFID diagnosis, or at least just looking into it, even if it's not specifically that. First things first though, our next delivery is getting a hefty tip, so are the rest. Unemployed Karen and her husband expect me to pay for her meals. I, 28 male, have two friends, Dee, who's 27 female, and Tommy, who's 29 male. We've known each other since middle school, and we make it a point to make time to keep in touch, and we go out to eat at least once a month, but often twice a month. We live a 40-minute drive apart, but it's worth it to keep the friendship alive. This has slowed down during lockdown, but we're back at it again semi-regularly. I'm single and aromantic. They've never made me feel like a third wheel, and this isn't a date that I'm invading. It's decompression time for friends to have a nice meal and maybe a few drinks. After the lockdown, Dee never went back to working. They both seem to be okay with this, and she enjoys the housemaking life. That's their thing, not my problem. The problem is that when the bill comes, Tommy asks for it to be split 2 ways, or it will just be split that way because only 2 of us walked up to the pay counter. The first few times I just shrugged it off. Half of her meal comes to less than $7, and I usually have a singular beer while they have soda, so my portion is probably $2 to $3 higher anyways. It all came to a head this weekend when we went to a nicer place that just opened in the area. At $50-ish a head, I couldn't help but speak up when he tried to tell the waitress to split the bill 2 ways. I did the math at the table, and just what I had came up to $67. A third of the total bill was $71. I told him I'd either pay a third, even though it's more than my portion, or just go Dutch. I didn't care either way since it was close. He was absolutely appalled, told me it was embarrassing that I had done all this in front of Dee knowing that she wasn't working, and made a snide remark about how I make more than him anyways. To his snide remark, I said something I maybe shouldn't have, about the fact that I'm not the one who married her, so why should I subsidize her unless she's coming home with me half the time? I paid my portion and left. Now he's texting me incessantly about how I embarrassed him in front of his wife and that I should have been a man about this situation and split the bill between the men like it's proper to do. The more I think back, the more I realize this has happened since college too. He and I would split the cost for pizza and she would come eat too. You can call me the jerk for what I said. I'll accept that. But am I the jerk for settling the bill in front of her? She's known me for as long as he has. Maybe I should have just paid for it then and settled it later. You're the jerk for that comment. Those kinds of things are not appropriate, and you kind of let yourself get taken advantage of here. Insist on 3-way for all future outings, if there are any. You're the jerk. If I was him, I would have secretly whipped out my phone and asked you to repeat that. I'd record you and post it online to show the world what a vile jerk you are. You can bet I'd be showing it to your workplace too, in person. If you're this kind of a person to your friends, I can only imagine how you act with coworkers. I hope they never give you another chance at being friends again. You are the most disrespectful person I've seen on here in a long time. You're the jerk. That comment was so completely vile, it outweighs whatever high ground you had. Seriously disgusting. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his friends? Please let us know. Never stay friends with people who feel entitled to your money. Am I the jerk for not letting my daughter have locks on her room? I'm 43, female. My daughter, Laura, who's 17, has been struggling to focus on her studies with her brothers Kyle, who's 12, and Ryan, who's 9, constantly disrespecting her privacy. A few days ago, she was yelling for Kyle to come to her room. I asked what had happened. She explained that Kyle flipped all of her items upside down. I called Kyle to come up and flip everything right side up. Yesterday, Ryan was running around her room and kept stealing her stuff while she ran to get them back. On the night of the same day, Laura was trying to sleep when the brothers suddenly barged in and ran through it, resulting in her screaming at them to stay out and close the door while she was sleeping, to give a few examples. Today in the morning, her father, who's 48, told her he didn't like the way she was screaming. She said that she was trying to sleep and her brothers were making all kinds of ruckus. He told her that they're kids and they will learn eventually. She said that they will never learn, and the only way for them to learn is to have locks installed for her room. He did not want her to, and they went back and forth on this until she threatened she would move out as soon as she became financially independent, since she wasn't going to wait for them to mature and they should already know to respect her privacy, to which he said to wait to include me in the conversation. I overheard, and when she went to her room, I told her she wasn't going to have locks set up because she already wastes her time without the need for locks, and I don't want her to fail. Laura said that they were never going to listen without them, and I told her that I would make sure they wouldn't enter her room. This evening, I heard her shouting for me. We were all in the living room. Her father explained what was going on. Laura said that she was making Kyle tea when he did what he's not allowed to do, and he said that if she promises to not tell, he and Ryan will never go into her room again. She didn't say anything, so they ran upstairs to her room. I told her that she has no right to complain since she always sleeps in Kyle's room after school. Her brothers all agree, and Laura calls all of us the worst. None of us are allowed in her room, and leaves. She comes back after a minute and says that she only sleeps in Kyle's room because he never uses it aside from sleeping at night, and if he was to use it for studying, then she would never go in there. Meanwhile, they constantly disturb her, mess with her stuff, and made her unable to sleep just last night. I told her if they ever go into her room, she needs to come to me. Then Kyle starts saying that they had the right to go into her room while she was trying to sleep because they were playing. Laura yelled at him, then said that she couldn't wait to move out soon, so she no longer has to deal with them. She also called me an awful mother for not giving her her bedroom locks. You're the jerk. What exactly are you doing to stop your sons from acting like jerks? They wreck her room, ignore her right to privacy, and barge in when she's sleeping. What exactly have you done to impress on your sons that this behavior is not acceptable? They're old enough to know better, so why don't they? You're the jerk. A 17-year-old deserves privacy. Why is your inability to keep your younger kids under control her problem? Either get her a lock or parent your sons. Don't expect to have a relationship with her after she gets out. Why on earth are you allowing your kids to act like that? Messing with their sister's things and disrupting her study time is bad enough. Running through the room while she's sleeping is even worse. You're the jerk for allowing this bad behavior and not getting a lock. My parents put a lock on my door when I was 9 to keep my younger siblings out of my private space because they respected me enough to not allow my belongings to be destroyed by their kids. You're the jerk. My brothers did the same thing when I was growing up. Luckily for me, they were highly allergic to peanuts. After I snuck a bit of peanut butter in their food a few times and a few trips to the ER, they finally learned to stay away from me. Your sons sound like total brats, and you and your husband are sorry excuses for parents. Well, what do you think? Should OP let her daughter have a lock on her room or not? Please let us know. Absolutely, and they should start parenting those boys. Am I the jerk for kicking out a guy that gave me the silent treatment in my own home? I'm part of a large friend group. We're in our late 20s to early 30s. The majority of the time, we hang out at my place, the launch pad. My place was chosen because I have a pool, an apartment pool. I'm not that fancy. It's pretty central, and it has the biggest kitchen, so it's where we usually decide to do the group's cooking. I would say that usually 8 to 12 people come to most things, and the core group is maybe like 20 of us, all dating back to college. There are a few people in the group I don't get along that well with, but whatever, they're part of the group. I still invite them. However, last night, Saturday night, something weird happened. One of the people who doesn't like me much, Jordan, was acting like a space case and wasn't responding to anything I said. It actually led to him burning the group's nachos because he ignored my directions to take them out of the oven. The fire alarm went off and everything. I found out through another group member that Jordan decided he's not going to acknowledge my existence anymore because he doesn't like me. To be clear, Jordan and I have never had any kind of argument or fight. I asked Jordan if this was the case, and he wouldn't even respond. This man had the gall to come to my home as a guest, cook food in my kitchen, nearly cause a fire, and then refuse to speak to me. I told Jordan to get out of my apartment if he wasn't willing to speak to me in my own home. Jordan, to his credit, complied and left immediately, grinning smugly like a Cheshire cat after filling my place with burnt nacho smoke. Jordan's good friend, Amber, who isn't my biggest fan either apparently, said I was being a controlling jerk and also left with him. I also booted Jordan out of the Launchpad group chat, which has sparked a serious controversy among my friends because it's where all the group planning for my place takes place. Anyway, it's escalated and the group is split. Half of our friends seem to think it's fine that I remove Jordan, both IRL from my house and from the Launchpad chat, because he was at my house and refusing to even interact. The other half think that Jordan is a long-standing group member and I should just put up with him ignoring me and continue to invite him even if he doesn't like me because he's been part of the group a long time and he didn't choose my house as the home base. So I'm wondering, am I the jerk for booting someone that won't speak to me from my own house when I'm the central hub for our friends? Not the jerk. Is Jordan 12? The silent treatment without explanation? Forget him. You don't have to put up with people who treat you like that in your own home. I get that group dynamics can be tough, but a modicum of decency towards the host shouldn't be too much to ask. If others don't like it, maybe suggest rotating meetup places. It might be nice for you to be able to relax and not host all the time. OP. Well, I just got off the phone, and I think I have the answer as to why Jordan hates me so much. It's because people from the group give me money, and he doesn't understand why they do it. He just sees people in the group giving me money on a regular basis. What the man doesn't seem to get, and has now been explained to him, is the reason they're giving me money is because they're being polite guests who reimburse me for the crap they're constantly using at my home. Food, drinks, paper towels, toilet paper, extra electricity for all the cooking and extra people, all the extra laundry loads of towels, extra loads of sheets, people showering off after the pool, you name it. Jordan has never done this that I can remember, but I'll be honest, I don't really keep track. People are generous and it mostly balances out. I end up buying a lot of stuff in bulk for the group that's pretty much covered by donations plus some extra. The extra, if there is any, goes towards the utilities bill, as it's about twice what it should be. This is something Jordan was apparently completely unaware of. Jordan thought people were bribing me. I would laugh if it wasn't so annoyingly blowing up my life right now. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Jordan? Please let us know. Friends are so overrated. My only friends are dead presidents, bruh. Skirt, skirt. Entitled hockey parents, bad parking, and nearly instant karma. This happened over 20 years ago now, sometime in the winter of 2001 and 2002, when I was working at the front desk of a large hotel. The hotel was a block from a large event center, which made it popular for anyone going to an event at the center. It's one of the incidents that will always stick with me as an example of karma getting the jerk. There was a large youth ice hockey tournament going on, and we had a long weekend filled with families and their lovely ice hockey kids that had traveled from all over the Midwest and Intermountain West to attend. Over 80% of our 300-ish rooms were filled with people for this event. Our parking lot was already too small for the hotel, and so we had to remind guests that if they couldn't find parking in our lot, that they could use the parking lot across the street. At first, we didn't think we needed to point out all the signs about not parking on unpaved areas. Evening before the tournament, all as well as it can be, sans the expected gangs of kids running up and down the hallway and riding the elevators at all hours. But we expect that. Parents were generally behaving at this point as well. Example, none of the typical adulterous antics that come with these groups. I got some juicy ones later to post. During the day, the next day, it's mostly quiet, with some groups coming in and out to rest when they had longer times between matches. No biggie, until it started to snow, and it snowed hard. We normally get snow, but it generally doesn't stick around long unless it isn't getting any sun, and typically not more than just a few inches. We got about a foot and had massive drifts throughout the lot. This is where the fun begins. What started as slightly not enough parking spaces turned into a massive short of spaces as no one could see the lines in the lot, and people with SUVs and four-wheel drive think they can do anything and park anywhere. And these were the vehicles of choice for hockey families lugging around thousands of dollars in gear. Not many sports kids can participate in that can be much more expensive than hockey, unless it involves horses. People are parked so poorly, we can't get a plow through our lot, and are actively directing people to park in the plowed and flat lot across the street, even offering our shuttle to carry equipment across the street. Of course, they don't, and by the time everyone is somewhat settling in for the night, Our parking lot looks like a snow tornado went through it, with vehicles parked pretty much wherever they wanted. Our maintenance manager clocked out and then came back in a few minutes later, telling us there were vehicles parked on the grass, one lifted vehicle over a hydrant, and half a dozen on the pond behind the hotel, but on our property. As I mentioned, snow doesn't stick around all winter. Neither does ice, and you couldn't pay me to walk across that pond in winter. How it was holding up, not one, but multiple vehicles, was nothing short of magic. And even in the snow and drifts, there's plenty of signage and a bridge that goes over part of it. You can't not know there's a body of water there. We called the night manager to the front, who had been patrolling the halls because of parent drama. Someone fancies someone else, but they are both married and they got caught. And he hears the maintenance manager's report, looks at us and says, "Tow them." I can't say I didn't take pleasure in calling the tow trucks after all the attitude we got, telling people to park across the street. Between those parked on the pond, over hydrants, and in well-marked no parking zones, 22 vehicles were towed. There were plenty of other vehicles that could have been towed, but only the ones that were in a dangerous situation or could get us fined, like blocking fire zones, got towed. I clocked out at 11 p.m. and went home to sleep, and I'm back at 8 a.m. for the morning shift. No kindness in these swing/morning schedules. All is relatively quiet at first, until the hockey families start to head over to the event center for the day around 9 a.m. And then we had 22 rooms with over-the-top angry guests. Our VP, whose office was just behind the front desk, grilled the two of us that had been there the evening before, and we reiterated that not only was it the night manager's instructions, but that there were vehicles on the pond, and we'd have been in a lot more trouble if it broke in the morning sun and someone got hurt. We got a blank stare for a moment from him. I don't think it ever occurred to him that a vehicle could drive all the way out onto the pond, before he shook his head and came up to the desk to back us up. He loudly reiterated what us at the front desk were saying, that there was clear signage of where to park, and they chose to go off-roading and park in dangerous and illegal places. We handed out the information of the tow yard to those who had their vehicles towed, called a handful of cabs. Our shuttle driver ended up dropping a few of them off who were actually nice and apologetic to the tow yard, on their way to pick up an airlines crew, and we called and gave the tow yard a heads up that they might want backup. Then Mr. Jerkface came to give us a grilling. He and his wife and prodigy son were staying in our presidential suite, and how dare we tow his $100,000 top-of-the-line SUV from the center of the pond, no less. And if there was so much as a scratch on it, he would personally sue each of us. And how big of a mistake he made to have not stayed in the historic 5-star hotel down the road, where they knew how to treat his type of people. He demanded a refund for his room's night, to which our VP firmly refused and told him if he could find a room elsewhere, he was welcome to do so. That wasn't going to happen. Everyone was booked solid. He eventually left the desk, and the next couple hours had a few other complaints, but mainly those getting their vehicles back sheepishly sulking back into the hotel, wallets $120 lighter. And then noon hit. Of course, our VP went to lunch just prior, and Mr. Jerkface literally threw open our sliding entrance doors when they did not open for him quick enough, and stomped straight towards us gals at the desk. One of our guest service guys popped out and stood between him and us because he was convinced he was going to jump the desk and attack us. Mr. Jerkface couldn't get his $100,000 top-of-the-line SUV back because the police had confiscated it. We're half amused at the karma this guy is incurring, but also half terrified, thinking he might be a mobster or something. His wife was trying to calm him down and get him to go back to the room and then go back to the hockey game. His kid, who I did genuinely feel sorry for, was watching this tirade looking dumbstruck, holding some of his hockey gear. Another of the front desk gals went into the back and called the police, because honestly, we did not feel safe. She came back out, what seemed to be too quickly, and whispered to me, "They're already here." I turned my head, and 3 cops come walking in our front door and directly for Mr. Jerkface. Mr. Jerkface still doesn't seem to get it at this point, and turns to the officers and starts losing it on them for having no right to confiscate his vehicle, how they don't know how to do their jobs, etc. And then the handcuffs came out. Just a note to clarify, we were at a large hotel with a bar, restaurant, convention halls that could hold a couple thousand in total, and our PBX had its own dedicated little button to our city's dispatch. When she had gone back, the dispatch line was lighting up already to give us the heads up that police were incoming for a guest. Mr. Jerkface got arrested in front of his wife and kid in the middle of our lobby, but it seemed like they'd just walk him out. He was already a bit belligerent with the officers though, and then one of the cops said something to him, in which he spit and shouted in the officer's face. "That jerk won't get a dime." At which point, he was then roughly taken out of the hotel and the wife and kids scurried off. Our VP was concerned the credit card would end up with a chargeback, but it never did, and honestly, the rest of the tournament was quiet. I think word of what happened spread and scared everyone straight for the last day. At checkout 2 days later, one of the refs for the tournament was paying for his incidentals, as his room had been paid for by the event, and said, "For voucher for breakfast, I'll tell you what happened." I've never seen our desk manager sign a voucher so fast. She had been away the tow day and the aftermath day, but still wanted to hear all the gossip. Ref was older and had been around a while and knew the whole story. Mr. Jerkface was well known among the hockey tournament officials for being that guy, flaunting his money, causing drama. Huge hockey jerk. He had another family with 4 kids, 1 boy and 3 girls. The boy was injured when he was just starting to play hockey at the age of 6 or 7, and whatever happened, he couldn't play hockey anymore. Mr. Jerkface had attacked the parent of the player who had crashed into his son instead of accompanying him in the ambulance to the hospital. It was a big, memorable scene, much like the one we experienced. So what did Mr. Jerkface do? He left his family, filed for divorce, and pretty much just ignored that they ever existed. Got remarried a few months later and quickly popped out a son who he had on ice by kindergarten. The boy is 10 now. Ref overheard the wife crying to some of the other moms that he was arrested for the combination of owing nearly $500,000 in back child support and some other unspecified financial crimes. Basically hiding his money to avoid paying his first family child support. Dude was literally living the high life with his replacement kid and wife. Apparently his vehicle getting towed set off the flag that this guy could be found and taken in. And we got a little follow-up. A few weeks later, after a fight in our bar, one of the arresting cops had returned. We asked him if it was true, what Mr. Jerkface was arrested for. He told us he can't comment on specifics, but that sometimes judges like to set the bail for the egregious child support evaders, the ones who have it but are probably hiding it, at the amount of their back owed child support. And really big support is going to make the news wherever he was sent off to. We all remembered where he was from and didn't take us long to find the article about the guy with a $500,000 bail over child support, only to get immediately arrested again after he bonded out by the feds. To this day, I still think about how if he had just listened to directions, how differently it would have turned out for him. Love it when karma catches up to a person. Wondered why my local coffee shop was low-staffed. Now I know why. I, 19 male, decided to quit my job and decided I wanted to work as a barista. So I started looking and found a good reviewed coffee shop close to my home. They were hiring, which I found odd considering it's a very good-looking shop that they got going. So I went in and met the owner. She gave me an interview and it went smoothly. Moving forward, first day on the job, they don't have a training course for newcomers like me, who have absolutely no clue about coffee or the equipment. So the employees made me work on grinding espresso, making shots, crema, etc. It all went well. They were super nice to me throughout the process, grateful for it. So I wrote down everything they told me and watched. Second day, I did everything that I was taught, to opening the lights, cleaning windows, cleaning tables, opening the cash register and counting the money in it, and opening the espresso machine, grinder, kettle, etc. I did it all correctly. It was just me and the owner because the employee that taught me yesterday had to get a surgery. Owner asked what I was taught yesterday, so I told her. She goes, "That's it?" I was a bit irritated by the way she said it. I thought I learned pretty well for a first-timer, but boy, was I about to be in for a wild ride. Customer walks in and asks for a cappuccino, so I did like any first-timer would do, pull out my trusty note and measure. But no, she said put it back and scolds me for not remembering. And for the whole entire day, she treats me like I'm a jerk for not knowing what I was doing. When I asked her to teach me the things I don't know, she was irritated. I was miserable. Sure, the employee taught me, but they didn't teach me everything. Third day, unsettling feelings start to come, but thankfully the owner wasn't there. Same routine goes, and I meet another employee, super nice and informative. And when I asked them questions, she would answer them instantly without hesitation and with pride. Customer came in and asked for a different extraction method, which I wasn't good at, and she knew that. So she told me to do the cash register. Everything goes buttery smooth, and when I pulled out my note to measure, she didn't judge me for it because we would remember things as we go. Fourth day, come to work early as I usually do to start my routine. I do everything they taught me. Owner walks in. My whole mood changed instantly. She asked me if I did my routine. I'm always an honest guy, so I told her yes. Doesn't believe me. Big Dumbo treatment comes. Scolding, scolding, scolding. I was miserable the entire day. She sees that I'm miserable and comes up to me and says, "You're not gonna quit on us, are you?" After saying that, she would walk back to where she came from and gossip, giggle right in front of my face, like I could hear them talking about me. I've never had a problem with the customers or the employees. They're all so kind. But my problem is the boss. What should I do, guys? Is it my fault? What did I do wrong to deserve this? I wake up at 5 a.m. every morning to open her shop, clean, open, prepare espressos like they told me to. Edit. I never lied in the interview about how I knew how to make coffee. I was honest throughout the interview about how I don't know anything about coffee or the equipment needed to make it, because I needed them to teach me the things I don't know, and not just stand there like some jerk that watches other people do the work. Am I the jerk for buying my girlfriend fake perfume? I, 23, male, have dated my girlfriend, 19, female, for a little under a year now. I've come to love her a lot, and my love language is gift-giving. My girlfriend has always been the type of girl that's just hard not to love. She's the definition of magnetic. Guys always approach her, and understandably, she's a high-caliber girl. She could easily be anyone's dream girl. Looks amazing, and everything about her is feminine, down to her hands and how she comforts me or makes me food. She has an expensive look to her, but she does all her self-care herself and is amazingly cost-efficient about it. As a result, the kind of guys that go after her are usually trust fund babies or are highly ambitious, med school, law school, business startups, things like that, despite herself not being anywhere in that tax bracket. This isn't her fault because I've seen myself that she never entertains anyone, but she just has that effect on people. It makes me feel like less of a man because I'm nothing like those guys, and honestly, it makes me feel like a bum. One day, while walking past her computer, I noticed that she was looking at a designer perfume, and I told her I'll get it for her. She's adamant that she doesn't want me to get it for her and that she was just kind of daydreaming about it. She's literally never asked me for anything, but I wanted to show her that I can take care of her and spoil her too. I look into it, and the perfume is $300. What the heck? I don't see the point in something like that, but honestly, my pride would be hurt if I went back on my word. So I find the perfume for a much greater value on eBay. Today comes and I gift her the perfume. She unwraps the present, sprays it on her hand to smell it, and her face is a blank expression, like she's trying to decide how to react. I ask her what's wrong, and she gives me a hug and a kiss on the cheek, thanking me that I wanted to get her something nice. I don't know why, but it made me feel like crap. I was expecting a much bigger reaction. I keep pushing her as to why it seems like she doesn't like her gift, and she tells me that she loves the idea, but it's obviously fake. I feel like this was an extremely ungrateful thing to say, and I called her a brat for even caring if the perfume is fake or not. I also said that she's materialistic due to the fact that she could supposedly even tell it was fake by merely looking at it and smelling it once. She says that it's dumb that I made a big show about getting it for her if I was just going to do this, and that what I got her is nothing like the original perfume, that it couldn't even be considered an imitation. I think it shouldn't matter, because I practically still got her the perfume she wanted, I just didn't drop $300 for it. This is making me see her in a different light. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. If Reddit boy got me a fake perfume, he'd need a new head. I expect my rules to be followed. Wait, not like that. I worked in the clothes section of our store, and it was not uncommon for staff and customers to ask fitting room staff to put clothes on hold for them by putting them in the back of the fitting room cupboard. All holds had to be picked up within 2 days or they'd be put back on the shelf, but everyone felt this was quite reasonable. A couple of months before Christmas, the department manager, for some reason, suddenly decided that staff were not allowed to put clothes on hold at all, even if it was just for a few hours until you finished your shift and could go to the registers. Nope. If manager saw clothes put aside for a staff member, she'd take it and screech, "I expect my rules to be followed," and "No clothes ought to be left in this cupboard," and go and put the clothing back on the shelf. She even printed out a note that said,
Staff are not to put items on hold. No exceptions.
Yes, that was even how she spelled it. And stuck it inside the cupboard door where holds would have been kept. No justification was ever given for this rule. It wasn't like the staff holds were taking up space, as there would generally be no more than 1 to 2 items on hold for staff at any given time, if that. Also, when she pulled a staff member's hold items out of the cupboard, she would always rip it out as if she was trying to start a lawnmower, knocking several other items of clothing onto the floor, and she'd always just flounce out without tidying up any of the mess she had caused. Fast forward to maybe 2 weeks before Christmas. I was working in the fitting rooms on the evening shift, and manager walked in while I was on the phone with a customer, maybe 10 minutes before closing time. As I watched, manager put 2 pairs of women's pajamas into the cupboard. However, instead of just putting them into the cupboard where there was a gap, she pulled the few remaining returns forward and pushed these pajamas right to the back of the cupboard. I watched her do it. She saw me watching, but neither of us said anything. As a hardworking employee, I knew that I had to make sure the cupboard was empty of returns before I left for the night, so that whoever was working in the morning would have a clean start. So as soon as I got off the phone, I took all the clothes out of the cupboard, put them all back out on the shelf, and went and clocked out to go home. My following shift, I got screamed at for putting the pajamas back out on the shelf because
they were for my mother's Christmas present,
and saying that she was going to make me call her mother and force me to explain why she wasn't getting the pajamas she wanted. I said, fine, I'll explain that she doesn't get her pajamas because of your rules. Manager said,
but I'm a manager. You saw me put them in there, so you should have just left them.
Without saying a word, I swung the cupboard door open and tapped the "No exceptions" bit on her sign. She was absolutely fuming, but there were customers and other staff there, and she realized that she didn't have a leg to stand on and would only look stupid if she pushed it further. So she just stormed out. The fallout, if you could call it that, was that she sulked and basically wouldn't talk to me for about 3 weeks. But given that when she did talk to me, it was usually to micromanage me or tell me to do something I was literally already doing, example,
hurry up and clean the fitting room stalls,
as I was already sweeping up rubbish in there with a dustpan, I was quite happy with that. On a side note, some staff did try getting around this rule by putting stuff in the cupboard with no name on it, but that made it hard for other fitting room staff as we couldn't tell what was a staff hold and what was just returns that needed to be put away. Others tried writing fake customer names, but the manager caught someone doing this and started putting away clothes with a customer name on it because she
wasn't going to let anyone get away with it.
On more than one occasion, it turned out that she put away something that was actually on hold for a customer, and then us fitting room staff would get shouted at for it. A lot of us evening and night workers couldn't even go and quickly buy the clothes we wanted on our breaks because we worked short shifts and either didn't get a break or only got 15 minutes, and the registers were so busy and understaffed that there was no way you'd even get to check out in under 20 minutes. By the time our shift finished, the registers were closed. My Karen mother-in-law calls my baby diseased, and my husband is siding with her. I'm 32, female, and my husband of 7 years is male, 32. I'm pregnant right now. We have one previous kid, Anne, who's 6, fake name. She also has epilepsy. She's had 1 seizure before, relevant later in this story. To be honest, my mother-in-law is horrible. She gives backhanded compliments, insults me and my looks, and always tries to set my husband up with other people. The last time we went to her place, she said she could make my husband a Tinder account or set him up with some girl who is the daughter of mother-in-law's best friend. My husband has told her to stop, but doesn't do anything else. Newsflash, she doesn't stop. When sending invites to my baby shower, I told my husband I didn't want my mother-in-law there. He told me, since you're not letting my own mother be in the room with you when you're giving birth, you have to invite her to this. You should be grateful that you get a baby shower at all. Also, he wouldn't even be at the baby shower, and he has something to do at work. At the baby shower, I was telling everyone how our baby was once again a girl. My mother-in-law then decided to say,
"Wow, another girl? Let's hope she's not like her sister."
I asked her what she meant by that, and she said,
"We don't need any other diseases in the family. Imagine seeing a newborn drop to the floor and shake everywhere. It's embarrassing."
At first, I was honestly confused, as she clearly has zero idea what she's talking about. But then the pregnancy hormones really kicked in, and I started crying hysterically. I left my friend's house and my mother drove me home. Once I got home, I saw my husband there. I didn't know why he was home and not at work, but I just couldn't stop crying. He said, "Where are all the gifts? You do realize how expensive some baby things can be." I honestly couldn't believe he said that, of all things, so I decided to lock myself in our bedroom. About 10 minutes later, he tells me he got a text from his mother explaining what happened. He told me that I caused a scene, and I should be happy I got to meet up with some friends today. I tried explaining how wrong what she said was, and how she insulted our daughter and our unborn baby. He said, "Well, Anne's epilepsy medication isn't cheap, so I see why she said that. You just interpreted it wrong. Apologize to my mother." I packed a bag and called my mother to come pick me up. I'm currently at her place, and she's picking Anne up from school. My husband and his family keep blowing up my phone and calling me a drama queen, along with some other mean names, so I need to ask, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Why are you married to this man? Because just from this post alone, I see 1. His mother calls his daughter diseased, and you know this isn't the first time that's happened, so even giving him the benefit of the doubt that he didn't know before, when OP tells him his mother called his daughter diseased, husband agrees? 2. He lets his mother treat OP like crap. 3. He's more concerned about presents than his pregnant partner in tears. Goodness, if I saw my pregnant partner that upset, I would be terrified something had happened. 4. He tells you that you should be happy you got to meet up with some friends today. Wow, okay, so this sounds wildly creepy and controlling. I'm not sure if this is just because of the way OP phrased it, but yikes. OP, does he let you leave the house? Do you have friends that are yours? It sounds like you at least still have contact with your family, so that's good, but still. 5. Husband wants OP to apologize to mother-in-law when it was mother-in-law who was a complete and total jerk, not only to OP, but to OP's daughter and OP's unborn baby. Look, OP, it's your life, but I can't possibly imagine that any partner could bring enough value to the table to make up for this BS. Relationships are supposed to add value to your life. I don't see a single thing that your husband does to make your life better. Boss says I should quit because I like spending time on hobbies, so I did. I was working for a startup engineering firm working as a piping design engineer, but since it was a startup firm, we didn't have a lot of manpower, and the ones we had weren't as qualified either. I was one of the very few qualified enough to handle a team of my own. The boss trusted me with almost everything. I was like the second in command after the boss, only because I was managing a lot of things on the side as a voluntary basis. Things like paycheck balancing, client meetings, quality assurance, documentation, and other stuff which he should have hired someone else to do. I was good at it, and he took full advantage of it by giving me things to do that never were under my job description. One day, he had this bright idea that we should revamp our website to attract more clients, and he gave this project to his nephew who had just graduated from college as a developer of sorts. After a week or so, the nephew came up with the first draft of the website, and the boss was fairly disappointed as it didn't look anywhere near to what he expected. He then called me in and asked me if I knew anything about website design. At that time, I was very much interested on UI and UX and was doing an online course to learn about it more, so I told him that I'll see what I can do. I spent the next full week making a proper information architecture, wireframes, and color guidelines that the nephew could pick up and build a website from scratch. In the end, the website looked futuristic and the boss was pretty happy. But during the week, my other responsibilities were put in a backlog and it just kept piling on. I knew I would be able to cover it once I'm done with the website and didn't pay too much attention to it. The next week, my boss caught up with the backlog and called me into his cabin. He started yelling at me for all the responsibilities that I didn't attend to. I calmly told him that I was working on the website and it's not a big deal. Told him that I would clear it out as soon as possible, but he wasn't happy. He asked me why I spent so much time doing something that isn't even my responsibility. I told him that I was learning about UI and UX and was pretty much interested to learn more. I obviously never thought about perusing it as a career because frankly, I was a mechanical engineer by qualification and didn't think jumping to IT would be easy. The boss snapped and told me that I should quit and pursue my hobby as a living. He said that only then will I understand how lucky I am to have a job that pays. I kind of got offended because 1, he doesn't even pay me the worth of things I do for the company, and 2, he knew I could cover and yet took this as an opportunity to discipline me. I stepped out of the cabin, went to my desk, and put in my resignation and went home. He called me a couple of times, asking me to revoke my resignation, and then made other people from the organization call me to convince me to come back. I wasn't having it at all. It's been 2 years now. I decided to pursue UI/UX as a career now, and I'm working as a product designer in one of the biggest organizations in the country with a pay that's almost 300% more than what I was getting as a mechanical engineer. Update 1. To all the people who wanted to know the company status today, the company was shut down because they had to pay a huge penalty for not being able to deliver the last project I was handling. Then lockdown hit and they had to reduce pay for all the other staff, which led to people leaving. Eventually, the company went bankrupt for not being able to keep up financially after lockdown. Am I the jerk for making my 16-year-old daughter get a job? I, 43 female, have 5 kids, but only Rachel, who's 19, and Rose, who are 16, are important to this story. My kids are homeschooled. Rachel finished her A-levels at 18 like normal school, but Rose finished her A-levels at 16. She is unable to go to university straight away like Rachel, as they only accept 18 and up. So instead of letting my daughter lie in bed all day, watching TV like she started off with, I let her have a month break because she's worked hard. I got tired of it and told her that it was time to get a job. It would look good for university and she can start saving up some money for the future. She said she doesn't want a job. She knows the university will want her as she has perfect grades, A or A+ in all 4 of her A-levels. I let her choose by herself for a month, but now I cannot deal with her lying in bed all day. I sat down with her and we made her university application together. I pointed out she has no work experience, gently might I add, and then she started telling me to get off her back and she'll get a job soon. Rachel messaged me telling me that Rose is annoyed at me for always telling her to get a job, and how unrealistic it is to expect a 16-year-old to get a job. I'm concerned that I am the jerk because she is 16, but I don't think I am because she cannot expect to get into uni just because of her grades. She needs some kind of work experience as well. You're the jerk. You should have allowed her to have the normal trajectory of a teenager. Instead, she was not only homeschooled, but ended 2 years early. What social life does she have? What impetus to have spending money of her own? Independence of her own? 16 is young to think about every move being about college. She needs more. You're the jerk. What is it with parents obsessing over their kids getting jobs? My parents were the same way, constantly pressuring me to get a job. Look, I know you're probably a boomer, but jobs are nothing like they used to be. Back in your day, you could make a decent living on minimum wage. Nowadays, thanks to inflation, you can't even afford a crappy apartment off minimum wage. This is why myself and many friends I know just stay on unemployment. We make twice as much off unemployment than we would if we worked these crappy jobs. Plus, we get to stay home all day. I once thought about getting a part-time job at GameStop just for the discount, but the lady at the unemployment office warned me that doing so would decrease my benefits, and if she were in my shoes, she wouldn't do it, so I didn't. When will you Gen X's and millennials just accept that the world is a different place now? It's literally sad how jaded so many of y'all are. Well, what do you think? Is OP a jerk for wanting her daughter to get a job or not? Please let us know.
I've worked since I was 16 years old. That unemployment comment really ticked me off. But according to them, I'm just a jaded millennial.
You want me to work at full capacity? No problem. Tell my colleagues to say goodbye to their bonuses. I work in a help desk call center as a first-line agent on purpose. My job is easy. We work from home where users can call, email, and chat with us, and we fix their most basic computer problems, often resolved by a restart or a deployment of some sort. I took this job on purpose to get away from a very stressful career that ended my social life, and frankly, my will to live. This job cost me exactly 0 energy, giving me the space and energy to have the social life I've always dreamed of. The pay in this job is based on the languages you provide help in, and because of my language skills and a promotion I'm not allowed to tell my colleagues about, I make more than anyone else on my team. For this simple reason, I refuse to take any promotions that bring more stress but are not financially compensated, causing me to have worked in first line for 5 years now, while most of my colleagues have had promotions. Because this company has a huge turnover, I often get new colleagues and managers. I usually train the new colleagues and have a friendly, cordial relationship with the managers. But I always try to stay private and reserved as much as possible to save all my energy for after-work activities. Most days I don't talk to anyone. I log in, I work on the tickets and calls and emails for half the time while studying, reading, and watching movies or listening to music the rest of the time. What's important to know for this story is that we can get a bonus of up to 10% of our monthly income depending on our productivity. I always get the 10%, but for some newer colleagues, it's difficult because the limits are pretty high. If I like a colleague, I'll sometimes help them by closing tickets in their name. I also usually take the more challenging tickets and leave the easier ones for the newer team members. Further bit of information is that the company I work for has their help desk for 12 languages, so to cover all the languages, we have a team of 8. So now to the malicious compliance. One of the people I trained became the new team leader, which I actually encouraged. The guy is exactly the manager type and understands the job. Unfortunately, the pressure from the operations manager got to him and he started checking our stats, noticing that for about 4 hours per day, there's no activity for me. I explained to him that this is on purpose to give everyone a chance to get their bonus and that my output is still higher than anyone else on the team. He also noticed that I sometimes close tickets in my colleagues' names, for which I couldn't give him the real reason because it's sort of fraud. I just told him I rush sometimes and just don't notice. He told me no more relaxing times and no more closing tickets in others' names. He actually said he would be checking up on me to make sure I work the full 8 hours I'm paid for. I explained to him that this was a very bad idea, that the team is doing really well and the current status quo is perfectly balanced and he shouldn't upset it, but he was young and reckless. Fine. For the next 2 months, I worked at full capacity, where normally there was a good balance of closing tickets and everyone getting a fair shot at their bonus. Now, all of a sudden, I did about 70% of the work, leaving very little for my colleagues who, except for one other, both months didn't qualify for their bonuses, causing huge conflicts on the team. I tried to stay out of it, but was soon accused of stealing all of my colleagues' tickets and not giving them a chance to earn their bonuses. I replied professionally to all the accusations via email, making sure to CC all relevant managers, including the operations manager. After the 2 months, our new team leader was reassigned and the status quo returned as it was. Am I the jerk for stopping my daughter's college fund and telling her if she wants to go back to take out loans like everyone else? I, male 55, have 4 kids, including Sally, who's 19. When Sally was in school, I never pushed her to go to college. Trade school, AD, I just wanted her to get into something so she'd have a solid start in the job market. Sally decided to study design in college. I paid so she doesn't have to take out loans, and she works at a fast food chain for daily expenses. She dropped out earlier this year and has been using the money to pay for an expensive apartment. I thought she was at student housing and buying luxury items. I wanted to visit her, but she said they weren't allowing visitors at the student compound, and I took her word for it. The only reason I found out what she'd been doing is because a friend of hers, daughter of a family friend, let it slip that she had moved places. I'm sure Sally wouldn't have told me anytime soon otherwise. I don't know what to think. Sally apologized and said she made a mistake and she does want to go to college. I said I'm stopping all money, but she started crying that she promises me she'll use it for college and wants to go back. I told her she broke my trust. If she really wants to go back, she can get a job and take out loans like everyone else. She got really upset. My ex is saying that I'm going too far, and Sally's realized her mistake and I should let her continue her studies. Most other people who know of the situation agreed with me, but my sister also said this is too harsh. Am I the jerk? I mean, clearly what she did was deceitful and irresponsible, but I kind of have to think you have some culpability here too. Would you hand a teenager the keys to a Ferrari and say, okay, just be sure to drive the speed limit? Would you really expect them to behave 100% responsibly? Some might, but I feel like most would wrap that thing around a street lamp. I think her handing in the reins to a limitless, as perceived by her, bank account and sending her on her way to college is a bit naive. Even some adults have trouble managing money and resisting the temptation to spend frivolously. Of course, Sally is still responsible for her actions, but I think you gave her too long of a leash before she was ready. I also think that completely pulling that fund as a consequence for a stupid teenager mistake is a bit much. I think if she really wants to go back, she can, but you will have to oversee the bank account and paying admissions, etc., since she can't be trusted with it. If there's not enough to complete schooling, she'll have to take out loans or work. I think I talked myself into everyone sucks here. You're not wrong, but I'm not sure you're right either. 19 is not really an adult. Most have no experience in life and get caught up in the excitement of things. Mistakes happen. I'm just curious if this is the hill that you're willing to end on. You could lose your relationship with your daughter over her making mistakes. Another commenter said something like, have her pay for a semester. If she does well, then you should start back up again. Were you the only one to contribute to the college fund? Did anyone else? You're the jerk. 19 is definitely not an adult. I'm 29 and my mom still handles most of my money stuff, like my bank card. You gotta be kidding me. Like my bank card and my cell phone bill. If you were a responsible parent, you would have made sure your daughter was not set up in a bad situation. You really need to take some accountability for your own actions and failure to be an actual parent. You can't just kick your kid out at 18, watch them crash, then refuse to even help with their college tuition. If my mom ever tried to pull this crap on me, she knows what would happen to her. I hope you learn to be an actual parent and be there for your daughter. She deserves so much better. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his daughter? Please let us know.
I think the commenters on Reddit are the biggest jerks of them all. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but some of these people make me look like Albert Einstein.
Am I the jerk for making a meal that my daughter hates? My daughter, who's 25, doesn't like meatloaf. She came from college and stayed with us for a week and asked me not to make meatloaf that week. Problem is that I have two younger kids who are 9 and 13 who are both picky, and one of the few things that they eat is meatloaf. So even though I tried not to make it, eventually I made it twice. My daughter got angry. I told her she's old enough and if she doesn't like the food, she can cook instead. She yelled at me and said that she's tired and just wanted to rest for a week. I think she's being unreasonable, but she called me a jerk, so am I the jerk?
Oh, here we go.
Everyone sucks here. Your daughter shouldn't be demanding you not make something, or she could have asked if she could share in the sides and make her own protein. But you made meatloaf twice? In the 1 week she's there? That seems like waving red in front of a bull. I realize you're not a short order cook, but I'd have taken some of the burger meat and made a smaller meatloaf and made her a burger, or asked if she could cook the burger. Maybe she feels by making meatloaf when it's the one thing she specifically can't stand, you're catering to them and ignoring her. Helpful info. OP says her normal meatloaf rotation is once or twice a week. So not only did she make no effort for her daughter, she intentionally made it the highest she ever does in 1 week. And if you read her comments, she keeps blaming the daughter. She could see I was making it. She didn't even try and cook. Oh, and my favorite, complaining about how she always complains she's tired. Because guess what? She's currently working through med school. Obviously, she's just faking being tired for attention because med school is an easy ride, right, OP? You're the jerk. She asked nicely that you not make meatloaf. You made it twice. Why? Do you usually make meatloaf 4 nights a week? I'm guessing that had you given your daughter a heads up and been even remotely apologetic, she wouldn't have gone nuts. Instead, you essentially told her that her preferences don't matter and that the 2 younger kids come first again. Why are the younger kids catered to? They both are also old enough to make their own supper, and they're both old enough to be required to eat what's served. I'm betting your oldest feels like this is just another example of you not caring about her. It seems like there's a history there. Just to clarify, you made meatloaf twice in a single week because your kids, who are in 4th and 8th grade, won't eat enough other food to fill a week? You know, when my daughter comes home from college, I make her all the food she likes because she never gets to eat my cooking since she lives 11 hours away from me. I think you could maybe make your visiting daughter a priority for the 1 week that she comes home, instead of making the only thing she asked to not have twice. You're the jerk. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know.
Maybe I'm just old school, but I can't fathom getting all mad at my mom because she cooked something that I don't like. This is what you call serious first world problems.
Help the boss hide the evidence of his affair? Sure. Years ago, I lived in a small town with less than 10,000 people. Everyone knew everyone, and since they all went to the same kindergarten, elementary school, and high school, most of them ended up marrying each other too. Yep, it's that small. I moved there for the adventure. Something about the wilderness, I suppose. I was a single guy, and I also didn't know any better. It would be fun, right? Little does one know, a small town with only one industry that attracts mostly transient population of working men 10 on, 4 off, and living in camp must be the definition of fun. I still don't know why I did it, or why I stayed for so long. Small towns are like black holes. Once you are sucked in, it's hard to leave. There's a story I heard about this town. There are 3 women to every 1 guy in this town, so you're a lucky guy. If you've spent every Friday night at the only pub, you will eventually realize it's the same 3 for every man. Like I said, because everyone knows everyone, it's inevitable some of them are hooking up, regardless of their marital statuses. My boss owns a business, and he flies out of the town often to the next biggest city because that's where his family lives and where the kids go to school. There's no way in heck his kids would grow up out here, he says. The wife can't stand the town, but would come and stay the week or even weekends every now and then. On some weekends, though, she would be in town, but he would have to go away on business. One weekend, on my days off, I get an urgent call from my boss who says he was out of town, but he needed me to quickly go into his home to help him retrieve something. He says, "Go through the basement door. It should be unlocked. Grab my laptop and all the receipts on the desk. If anyone approaches you, just be cool and pretend you belong there. Be quick and quiet." Want me to break into your house and grab property that doesn't belong to me? Anything for you, boss. As you can see, I really needed the job. I pulled up near the house, but parked further away. I surveyed the surroundings, took a deep breath, and walked quickly to the side of the house where the basement door was. Lo and behold, the basement door is unlocked. The muscle dog is in the backyard and could see me, but didn't bark. How useful to have a guard dog that doesn't bark. I entered the basement, and sure enough, there was a laptop that was plugged in and unlocked, and a Ziploc bag with receipts. At this point, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but they are fancy restaurant receipts, concert receipts, and receipts for hotel stays. Before I closed the laptop lid, I saw the thumbnails of the picture folder. Everything now makes sense. Then I heard a lady's voice from upstairs, so I shoved everything on the desk into a bag and booked it. Now I was trying to be ninja sneaky on my exit, but the darn dog barked. I must have looked extra flustered when I looked back at the house and saw my boss's wife staring at me from behind the window. Oh no. I drove straight home and took a long shower. My heart was pounding so fast, I probably forgot I couldn't remove fingerprints from my boss's home this way. Hopefully, she didn't recognize me. My phone must have been going off the whole time because it was ringing when I got out of the shower. My boss asked, "Did you get it?" I did, but your wife saw me. Did she say anything? She only saw me as I was leaving, from a distance. Okay, this is what I want you to do. Drop this off at my office, put it into the drawer. I will deal with this next Monday. Sir, I think I know what this is about, and I won't say anything. But are you sure this is a good idea? Just do as I say. Okay. At this point, I think it's been at least half an hour since I was at the basement. I drove to the office, and there were cars parked outside. It's a 24/7 operation after all. As I entered the office, I saw one of the operations supervisors, who asked if I was working weekends again, and I said yes. I moved quickly down the hallway and made a turn into my boss's office. The boss's wife was there in his office, in his chair, arms crossed, and looked upset. She said that she could call the police, or I could tell her what I was doing at her house. In the end, she will get the answer. She saw the grocery store bag I was holding onto and asked me what it was. At this point, I told her that I was told to bring this here, and I need to put this into the drawer next to where she's sitting. I placed the package and left, then texted my boss that the deed is done. Great job. Next Monday, crap hit the fan. I guess the boss's wife must have guessed the password to the laptop. I never got fired for what I did. After all, I did everything to a T. It was a tough next few months, though, as the boss and his wife worked through their divorce. The company ended up going into receivership, and everyone got laid off, including me. After years at this small town, I finally found a way and motivation to finally leave. Karen landed me a potential future job. When I was younger, around 14, I always wore collared t-shirts, often used as uniforms at most electronics stores. I had just started a simple job elsewhere and was going to use my savings and first payment to buy my first self-built gaming computer. So I was in a computer electronics store, trying to learn and make a few plans. Doing this as efficiently as possible, I like to get hands-on, and it helps me think and plan better. As I was crouching over components, like Gollum, trying to select my own components for the very first time, this lady came up to me and tried to get my attention. Me, hunching over, knee-deep in my own thoughts, she asked me if I work here. As I was as focused as I was, it slightly startled me, and I jumped up and only managed to come up with a short, "Uh-huh," as I was going to ask her what she wanted, not being able to actually make out the question she just asked. She continued to ask me if I could help her, and I don't blame her considering my appearance. Me just having entered the job market, I had received some service experience and figured I might as well. The question probably couldn't be that hard, right? The following interaction ensued. We've got me, we've got the lady, and we've got the worker. Me. Yeah, sure. What do you need? Lady. I'm trying to find a laptop for my son, but I am completely lost. Seems fair enough, and a reasonable question to ask anyone with my appearance, regardless of me working there or not. Me. Oh, okay. Were you thinking school laptop or general use? Well, it's more of a gaming laptop, really. Me. Oh, okay. Do you have a budget or any other information that might be useful making a decision? Yeah, I have a budget of… insert mid-tier budget here. And I know he plays Team Fortress 2 and Roblox. Having just spent a few weeks learning and recently acquiring the knowledge of what parts are important for what, I could confidently answer. Me. Oh, great. That doesn't necessarily require the most expensive computer on the market. Have you looked at any options? Karen, getting a slightly frustrated tone. No, that's what I came here to ask about. Me. Well, have you looked at any of the laptops displayed at the section over there? Pointing to the 2 rows of demo laptops closer to the registers. Karen, getting even more frustrated. No, I have no idea what I would be looking for. That's why I came to ask. Me. Okay, I'm sorry. Well, anything between a lower amount than budget and your budget would probably be what you need. Just look for relevant specs at the time, and it would be more than enough for him. Can you join me so I'm sure? Me. Figuring at this point it shouldn't be a considerably longer interaction and I could get back to my thing. Just point out 3 options at 3 different prices and I could leave, so I accompany her over to the laptop section. Okay, so which ones would be an option? I point to 3 different laptops, make an effort to explain the differences in a short but precise manner. After concluding, I consider myself done. Beyond that, you could really just pick based on your budget. As I'm about to leave, she says, So what can you do on pricing here? Me, a little confused, quickly realizing the mistake that has just happened. Oh, I'm sorry. I think there's a misunderstanding. Oh, come on. I know you guys have some leeway on the prices. What's the best you can do? Me. No. You see, oh, don't you dare be more condescending than you were earlier. That should account in the price too. Probably referring back to when she was getting flustered in the first place. Me, a bit taken aback about what just happened. Oh, but I know you do. I know I can get a better one if you just work out whatever you have to. What about that one? Could we do 20% here? That seems reasonable. Me, you have to talk to… Fine, direct me to your supervisor, but you're coming with me. I don't work here. What do you mean? Why else would you be helping me? Now come on, let's bring this to the register and get something done. As we proceed to the checkout, which is rather close, she's literally dragging my tiny little self along as I make an effort to explain the mishap. When we get there to the register and a worker sees this lady literally trying to push me behind the counter, they ask what's going on. Karen, well, this young man is going to honor his word and sell me this laptop at a 20% discount. Worker, oh, he doesn't work here. Well, why has he been helping me and promised me a 20% discount then? Your company is now responsible to keep that. Me, I tried to tell you, I don't work here. And whatever the case is, I will have this laptop for this price. Worker, I don't know what happened over there, but worker continued to explain what is about to happen next. I managed to slide away as I see a manager approach. From what I could make out as I'm lingering in the area, trying to get back to my things, the lady got upset and left in a bit of a hurry. As I was getting back to my things, The manager approached me, and me, thinking I was in trouble, I was about to apologize for making the lady think I worked there. He assured me I had nothing to worry about, and he had in fact watched me deal with the situation and told me some customers are like that with the real employees too. He apparently admired the way I explained things to her and asked if I ever needed a place to work, I would be welcome back. I appreciated it, finished my planning, and left. My girlfriend is demanding to be removed from our apartment lease. My girlfriend and I lived together for 5 months, and it's been going good. But her grandma recently had a fall and requires care and someone to live with her because she was on the ground for hours before girlfriend's mom found her. Our apartment is one of the cheapest, and yet I can't afford it alone. My girlfriend wants me to remove her from the lease while she lives with her grandma. But I don't want to live with a roommate anymore, and I told her she should keep paying for the apartment that we signed for a year since living with her grandma is free. But she's angry that I won't remove her from the lease and find a roommate, calling me childish for not just finding someone else to live with in the meantime and letting her live with her grandma, which is an hour away. But how is it fair she can go live with her grandma rent-free while I'm stuck with a stranger I don't even know when she can continue to pay her half and just live with her grandma? I've told the landlord I'm not taking her off the lease, and she's threatened to break up with me because of it. You're the jerk. Major, and may the karma you put out be reflected back to you. She's literally going to help her grandma. She's going to be working to keep her safe, and you call that rent-free? Seriously? I've been this caregiver, and I can say it is so much work. I loved my grandma, and I don't regret helping her through the last few months of her life, but just because I didn't pay money to stay there doesn't mean that there wasn't a cost. OP is totally the jerk. Absolutely. OP, the price for your girlfriend is a lot of mental and emotional load. She needs you to be there to support her because what she's doing will be tough. She does not need you being petty or trying to manipulate her into what you want. That's harsh. I just want to point out that while her efforts to help grandma are selfless and admirable, she did sign a legal agreement, presumably. Now she's putting it on OP to fill a rent gap that he wasn't expecting. Regardless of any unexpected and tragic circumstances, it's kind of crappy to just bail on someone like that and leave them to figure it out, especially your significant other. Ouch. I'm also feeling for this dude a bit, because apparently girlfriend isn't worried about coming back to him. Like, I can't imagine, after having moved in with my wife way back when, that at any point she would have been okay separating our living arrangement entirely like this. It doesn't sound like OP has a relationship anymore either way, so at this point, he has no reason not to pursue the soon-to-be ex-girlfriend for the rent that she agreed to pay. Sorry, but at this stage, he's not the priority. Her grandmother should and does come first. But the rental agreement she signed is the priority, not him. Even if she leaves him, she will still be on the hook for her half of the rent, even if she's not there. You're the jerk. This relationship sounds doomed. It would be reasonable to expect her to cover her half of the rent until you found a roommate. But pay half for the rest of the year for a place that she doesn't live in? Just because you don't like roommates? All because her grandmother had an emergency and needs care? Yikes. Not the jerk. I remember a similar story where the roles were flipped. The boyfriend was the one who wanted to move out and asked to be taken off the lease because his father had a heart attack and needed to be cared for. His girlfriend fought him on it because she needed him to pay rent until their lease was up, and she refused to get a roommate. Every comment on that story was talking about how improper planning on his part didn't necessitate an emergency on hers. Even lawyers were commenting, telling her the steps she could take to get the money that he would owe on the rent. The hypocrisy on this site never ceases to amaze me. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for not wanting to take his girlfriend off the lease or not? Please let us know. All I know is I think the relationship definitely sounds like it's done for. I lied to the people I was babysitting for to get them to come home. I'm 15 years old and I babysit to make money. I took a first aid course and a babysitting course. Last weekend, one of my little sister's classmates' parents had a wedding to go to, and they asked if I would go babysit. I asked how late they would need me and if I should pack an overnight bag if they were going to be staying out all night. They said that they would be home by midnight. So I checked with my dad if that was okay because he's my ride. He doesn't want me alone in the car with people that he doesn't know. So my dad was there to pick me up at 11:50. The kids were all asleep and I was watching TV. I had texted them at 11 to double check that they would be there on time. The mom texted me back, yes. 12:30, they still aren't there. I texted again, No answer. I called my dad, and he's upset. Not at me. 1 o'clock, I call them. No answer. My dad went and got a coffee at home and came back. He is all calm. Not good. He's ready to blow. I texted them every 15 minutes and no response. 2:20, I have an idea. I texted them that someone tried to break in their garage, but the alarm scared them away. They were home drunk in an Uber in 15 minutes. My dad made them pay me for my extra time before we left. He told me that I'm not allowed to babysit for them again unless I charge them for an overnight stay. Yesterday at school, I saw the mom when I was picking up my sister after school. She gave me crap for scaring her and her husband, that they had checked their security cameras and no one even tried to break in. I said, sorry, the alarm went off, so I called you. She called me a liar, which is fair, but I don't feel bad about what I did. They lied to me first. My mom says I should have just sucked it up, but my dad says that they broke our deal. I do feel kind of bad for tricking them into coming home from their party, but they could have told me that it was an overnight, or they could have texted me that they were going to be late. My dad has brought me an overnight bag before when that has happened. Edit. My mom wanted me to call the police to see if they had been in an accident, but I thought that if they were still at the wedding, that would have caused a scene. Not the jerk. The fact that the parents said yes, they would be home at 12, and then couldn't or wouldn't respond for 2 hours is BS. Where she gets off being upset with you is crazy. Please tell me they apologized when they finally got home. OP. They did not. Next time, just text them. If you're not home in the next 15 minutes, since our agreed upon time was X, I will be calling the proper authorities for what you're doing. They were neglectful parents. They are in the wrong. Their poor planning is not your problem. What is it with takeovers and idiotic management? A bit of context. I worked for the same company for the last 20 years and recently started thinking about options. I had a second job which I really enjoyed and did really for fun and for a little bit of cash to spend on boy toys. It was never going to pay my mortgage. Over lockdown, we were all sent to work from home, and you know what? It worked. Most folks on the team got more done and had a significantly better work-life balance. Right at the start though, the company was taken over, and that was the start of 2 years of changes. The first was an attempt to cut everyone's pay by 10% because lockdown. The company is in online payments, and lockdown was a real money spinner for them. The CEO and CTO bragged that they had gave up their salary for 6 months to sweeten the 10% pay cut. What they didn't do was give up their bonuses or options, and the dud really well out of that. Top tip for CEO and CTOs in Fortune 500 companies, your salary packages are posted publicly. We knew what you got. Roll the clock forward to this summer. The CTO and CEO are awarded a huge pay raise to compensate for the time they gave up their salary. At the same time, staff were told there was no pay raise forthcoming for them as there wasn't the money to do it. They also cut long service awards, so my expected service bonus evaporated. Then they had a town hall meeting. There was a lot of heated discussions on pay and the cuts to the recognition scheme. Then came the sledgehammer. Everyone had to switch back to working in the office. There was an option for continued home working, but that would require a reduction in salary to reflect the savings made in commuting and time spent commuting. I asked what other options were on the table and was told I could always look for another job. The timing of that was perfect. I had been looking into options for increasing my work in my second job and was told I could have as many hours as I wanted. I made the call as soon as we left the town hall, asked to go on full-time hours, and got approval immediately. The following Monday, we all had to go into the office full-time again. I walked in, logged into the network, and then I handed in my notice. Here's when the fun really kicked in. We were asked to give 3 months notice, but if you gave 1 month, then there was no legal recourse. I had also carried over quite a lot of vacation time from the previous years and had 8 weeks to take. I gave the month's notice and requested a month of my vacation immediately. There was a sharp intake of breath and a very shocked face from my manager and the sudden realization I was out of the door that day. If you're going to tell someone to just look for another job, don't be surprised when they already have one. You should also have a plan B in place in case the person leaving was due to meet with a client later that week. Lady complains about me to her boyfriend over the phone while I'm literally standing right there. I'm so upset right now. So our hotel doesn't have any vending machines. Instead, we have a marketplace, That's basically a little room with drinks, snacks, and some basic medications available for guests to buy. I can either add the charges to the guest's room, or if they wanted to pay at the counter, I'd log the charges in a monthly marketplace folio that contains all market transactions from people paying at the counter. So by the end of the month, there are literally thousands of charges and transactions on that one folio. It's November, but the manager has us using the October folio until the end of this week. If someone pays with a credit card, I get a pop-up asking if I want to print a receipt of the sale. If someone pays with cash, I obviously don't get the pop-up, and trying to print a receipt will print every last transaction on the folio. Cool, we've got the background info taken care of here, now on to the story. This lady comes down and browses the marketplace for a couple minutes. She brings 2 cans of ginger ale to the desk and says she wants to pay in cash. Okay, no problem. I log the transaction and accept the payment. Here's our little dialogue. Her:
I don't need my change, just a receipt.
Me: I'm sorry, but I can't print you a receipt when you're paying with cash.
Her: Well, someone did it just the other day, so yes, you can.
Me, confused, because that definitely didn't happen unless they gave her 50 pages of transaction history. Who was here? Her:
I don't know, some guy. You know what? Whatever. I don't need a receipt.
Me, flustered, and wondering if I can do anything else to help her. Oh, are you sure? And she was already walking away when I saw her rolling her eyes. Apparently, she was on the phone with her boyfriend via Bluetooth, earpods, or something similar. So she stopped in front of the elevator, and as she was waiting for it to come down to the first floor, this is the conversation she had with her boyfriend, in a normal volume, not even caring that I could easily hear her side of the conversation 5 feet away from me, not even attempting to hide it. Her:
Ugh, this girl at the desk just told me she couldn't print a darn receipt. I told her that someone just did it the other day, and she asked who it was. Jerk, it doesn't matter who it was, just give me a receipt. And then I told her to forget it, and she said, Oh, are you sure? As if I didn't just stand there telling her that I only wanted my receipt. I can't believe this dumb, stupid jerk.
And then she got on the elevator, still talking. Those doors closed, and I just said, "Forget you," to get it out of my system. She really acted like a total stuck-up jerk, over $2.12 in cash. Why do you need a receipt for that in the first place? And secondly, if she's going to complain about me, she could at least have the decency to do it somewhere other than 5 feet away from me. I don't know if she was looking for a reason to get upset, or if that's just her normal, sparkling personality. Either way, it was just infuriating. We should all get a few consequence-free forget yous to use per year on the worst guests. All customer service and hospitality workers should. Edit. Y'all, I'm not here to debate on whether or not there's a way to print the receipt, because I double-checked with a coworker who has been there for years when she came in for her shift. I'm a bit surprised by all the people acting like I was the one being the jerk here. Her crappy behavior was not necessary, regardless of all the things I'm hearing about legality and not knowing the system. She was rude, but you definitely need to learn your system a bit better. There's always a way to print a receipt, regardless of the PMS. You'll eventually learn it all, though. I apologize in advance for that. In the US, it's legally required to be able to provide a hard copy receipt. How the customer paid is irrelevant. Someone just doesn't want to use paper. Yeah, I'm sorry, but you, the hotel, should be able to give her a receipt for her purchase, however it's made. She shouldn't have been rude about it, but it is extremely ridiculous that you're unable to issue a receipt for her purchase. In your shoes, I'd at least warn people before making cash purchases in the future that you can't do a receipt. A lot of folks are traveling for business or have to keep track of spending for other reasons. I'd want a receipt because I don't know you and so I don't trust you. So in case you pocket the change and then charge the room anyway, I want some proof that I already paid previously. There was no reason for the customer to be such a jerk, but I probably would have side-eyed you a little for that "are you sure" comment. Like, you're the one who just said you can't do it. Makes it kind of irrelevant whether I'm sure I don't need one or not. Am I the jerk for refusing to stand up for my wife and kick my cousin out of the house? My wife, Taylor, and I got married a little over 2 years ago. It was supposed to be a beautiful day and was something she had dreamed of her whole life. But unfortunately, during the reception, a family friend, Ken, intentionally spilled food and drink on her dress, which obviously devastated Taylor. This was pretty early in the reception, and there was no way to get it out. So the night was ruined for her, and Taylor struggled greatly to move past this. Obviously, Ken was thrown out of the venue, and we did bring him to court for the damage. He opted to just pay without going through with the court date and has flat out admitted that he did it on purpose. His reasoning was he had a thing for my mom, was wasted, and thought that that would impress her. Apparently, my mom, unbeknownst to us, was angry because Taylor told people we were engaged at my mom's milestone birthday party, and my mom told Ken that, and he got this brilliant idea to woo her. Anyway, my mom initially sided with us, but later began dating Ken and told us to get over it. I told her it was us or him, and she picked him. I lost my mom and both of my sisters over this guy, and Taylor lost out on her dream wedding. I haven't seen my mom since, but I did know through family that she and Ken were getting married. I tried to keep this from Taylor as it would hurt her, but she found out. Recently, my cousin Emily came over. Emily is the only family I have left due to Ken, so I do value the relationship. Emily mentioned how she had spent the weekend in a nearby vacation town for my mom's wedding and was just saying how much she liked the town. But Taylor snapped at her and said she didn't want to hear anything about my mom's wedding. Emily said she understood. About 20 minutes later, Taylor asked if she wanted to stay for dinner, and Emily said that she couldn't stay as she has my mom's dogs at the moment, so obviously she's on her honeymoon. Taylor lost it and said Emily can't be this stupid and must be trying to hurt her for some reason. She began to get emotional and said that her wedding was stolen and she doesn't want to hear anything about my mom being happy or having a wedding. I gave her a hug and tried to calm her down. She told me to make Emily leave, and I said that didn't seem fair as it was probably a mistake. Emily said that she had said not to talk about the wedding, and she didn't realize that she couldn't even talk about the dogs. Taylor asked if I was really going to not do anything, and I said I didn't feel right kicking Emily out. Emily left on her own, but Taylor ended up in tears and was angry with me. Not the jerk. Your wife is over-exaggerating here. I can sort of understand the wedding drama, but asking you to kick out the last family member you have is cruel and disrespectful. P.S. What is wrong with your mom? O.P. I'm personally never going to forgive her, but I do genuinely feel he is the first person who just loved her. I think she was pretty burnt out from taking care of everyone from her parents to her sister to me, and no one had ever really loved her before without wanting or needing a lot in return. She was getting more and more bitter leading up to the wedding. Not the jerk. It sounds like your wife hasn't healed from her wedding experience and is still very much hurting. That being said, Emily did nothing wrong. She respected both of your boundaries and did nothing to intentionally hurt anyone. I can understand why your wife would be upset, but her reaction was out of line and put your relationship with Emily at risk. I'm going to go with everyone sucks here for the following reasons. 1. Emily, least of the everyone sucks here, was slightly in the wrong for bringing up the dogs and your mother's wedding because it's pretty obvious from your posts that this has been a known problem area and tensions running high in regards to your mother and Ken. Whether Emily was just oblivious or just trying to help reestablish relationships, I do not know, but she clearly missed the cues. Ken is the biggest jerk of them all. Taylor. Sure, having her dress wrecked sucks big time, but it did not have to destroy her dream wedding and still being traumatized by it as well. Unhealthy and somewhat obsessive. That's the thing about life. Crap happens intentionally and unintentionally, and you have to be able to deal with it. She never has to like Ken, but if hearing about your mom sets her off like that, she needs therapy. Taylor also sucks for announcing the engagement at your mom's special day. You, not the jerk for kicking Emily out. You're the jerk for engagement announcement, and a big you're the jerk for not getting your wife into therapy. Or are you just going to go through life cutting everyone who upsets your wife out of your life? OP's mom, judgment withheld. Seems a bit of you're the jerk for letting this all fester and destroy relationships, but she's married to Ken, and seems to me that will be a lot of punishment for her. Why anyone would want to marry someone who thinks being a total jerk is a good idea is beyond me. Not the jerk, but get your wife help. She needs professional therapy regarding this event. Not the jerk. But I love how when the wife is the one acting irrational, everyone says that she just hasn't healed from her past experiences and that you need to get her professional help. But when the husband is the one acting irrational, everyone just calls it red flags and tells her to divorce him. That point of view pretty much sums up our society, to be honest. Well, who do you think sucks in this story? Please let us know.
Yowza, that felt more like an episode of Game of Thrones than a Reddit story.
Cost of $40 per month is too expensive for the accounts team. My work involves analyzing all kinds of data. This instance occurred around the time when our company was somewhat new, but still large enough to have 150 employees and rapidly growing. So far, our data analysis has been retail companies, travel agencies, or even the housing market. For the first time, we received a request to analyze health data from 5 hospitals in our area. The health data is very sensitive, so the raw data itself and the analytical result could not be shared via email or Dropbox. For the first time, my team gets to see that sensitive companies go through channels that have a lot of security to share the data between us and the client. These channels cost money, but nothing too expensive, which our organization couldn't afford, something like $40 per month. 4 out of the 5 hospitals have this data sharing channel, which meant that my team was able to receive the raw data and also be able to provide the analysis via the same channel. The 5th hospital was new and they didn't have this channel. Either our company or the 5th hospital needed to have this channel. So I raise a request with the accounts team to purchase this channel and it's denied. Myself and my manager both raise it again and also discuss it with the account supervisor, and it gets approved verbally but declined on the system once again after 2 weeks. We try again for the 3rd time after discussing with the higher accounts manager and still no approval at the end to buy this channel. It's declined and we've been told that it's the hospital's responsibility to share the data. And if we reach the hospital, they ask us to reach the health ministry, which then asks us to get in touch with a local member of parliament, etc. So just a lot of bureaucracy that I shouldn't be managing. While this entire request of data sharing is being worked on, the time for us to receive and analyze this data is running out. We're waiting only on a single hospital data, which is ready to be sent to us, but only via an appropriate channel. So I've had enough. I find out from the health ministry email response, while working on getting the hospital to buy the data sharing system, that the data can also be shared practically. Specifically, if I was to take a USB with me to get the data physically at the hospital and also return the output to the hospital the same way. This practical data sharing capability is deemed entirely safe, and that's what I started to do. Every Monday, I drive 30 minutes to the hospital at 11 a.m., go to their admin team to retrieve the data in my USB, and then drive back to my work reaching at 1 p.m. Then I go have lunch at 1 p.m. I repeat this same task again with our analytical output on Thursday. Our contract is to analyze the health data for the whole year. After doing this for 3 weeks, one of the upper management persons, whose office is opposite my desk, starts to think that I've been taking a very long time for lunch, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. He comes to my desk and asks if everything is okay and why I was away from my desk for 4 hours. I tell him the whole story. He's not happy at all. The cost of that data sharing system is nothing compared to the cost of paying my salary while I physically collect the data every single time. He puts the accounts team into their place by finding out that they approve of this system verbally each time and then deny it every time after a few weeks. And literally, that day we have this system all purchased and then installed overnight. Although I do miss the bi-weekly travel while listening to music to only do a copy-paste of files into and out of a USB drive. A checked-out guest came back and tried to break into a room. A few days ago, a guest that had checked out that morning calls the hotel saying that they left their phone behind. I checked lost and found and didn't find anything. I radioed housekeeping to ask if they had found anything in the room and they didn't. I get back on the phone with the ex-guest and tell them that we haven't found anything and that the room has already been cleaned and inspected and is currently occupied by a new guest. Ex-guest says that they're coming to the hotel and hangs up. A few minutes later, ex-guest walks into the hotel and demands a key to the room. I tell her that we can't give her a key because that room is occupied. I offer to call the current guest to see if they can 1. Check the room for the phone, or 2. Give permission for staff to enter the room and look for the phone. Understandably, the guest is not comfortable with this because they have valuables in the room. Ex-guest calls 911, saying that we stole her phone and the cops need to come and arrest me personally. At the same time, I call the non-emergency number and tell them that she needs to be removed from the property because she's causing a scene and threatening staff. While I'm on the phone with dispatch, ex-guest decides she's going to sneak up to the room and try to break in. She runs into housekeeping and tells them that she left her key in the room. Housekeeping is on their way to let her into the room when I intercept and tell the guest that the police are on their way and she needs to head back down to the lobby. She goes back down to the lobby and calls her friends for backup, and they start threatening to come beat me up. and then said that they're going to come back to the hotel the next time I'm alone. So the cops show up. I tell them that we have done everything that we can. The cop gets the current guest's phone number and calls them and proceeds to tell the guests that if they don't let ex-guest into the room, then they will be arrested for receiving stolen property. Guest says that ex-guest can't go in, but the police officer can go in and retrieve the phone if it's in there. Now, a few side notes. This guest checked in under a false name. We only found this out because she gave her actual name to 911. This guest also knew exactly where the phone was. It was almost as if they hid the phone in a spot where they knew housekeeping wouldn't find it. This guest also claims that they needed to catch a flight home, but after doing some research, this guest lives locally. I'm 90% convinced that ex-guest was planning on stealing items from the current guest. The other 10% says maybe she really did forget her phone. Anyway, GM calls me and says that I was in the wrong. I should have just given ex-guest a key to the current guest's room or gone into the room myself to search for the phone. I've been with this brand for nearly a decade. I've worked for multiple properties. Never in my career has a manager ever told me this was anywhere close to acceptable. This guest was also not DNR'd or trespassed. They were also under a Go Milton raid, and my GM is refusing to report them to Milton. I've been off for a few days. I go back tomorrow. I have to worry about ex-guests showing up to fulfill their promise of coming back for me. I'm also anticipating a write-up, which I already plan on recording the conversation because clearly this manager is totally unethical and I want to have proof of our conversation. This is more of a rant than anything, but I could really use some advice. In my 10 years, I've only had to call the police 3 times, including this incident. This is the only incident where I've been so openly threatened and I feel like management just doesn't care about my safety at all. My girlfriend refuses to get a job and expects me to pay her bills like her parents have always done. My girlfriend, 23 female, and I, 26 female, have been dating for over 2.5 years. We met when we were both in college. I graduated soon after we met, and she dropped out after 1 year of relationship. She worked 4 months in retail and then quit. She now hasn't been doing anything for over 7 months. She looked for jobs for a week and stopped. And now she does Uber whenever she really needs money because her dad didn't send her any. I pay 75% of the rent and we split 50-50 for the other bills. The only reason I agreed to pay more rent than she does is because she was okay with living in an unsafe part of town for low rent, while I would rather pay a little more and be safe. So I agreed to pay the difference in rent. All the bills are under my name. We agreed that she would use Cash App to send me her part of the bills every month. Her mom used to take care of all of her bills, and she told me herself she didn't trust herself to manage the bills. That's why I took responsibility of all of them. For the past 4 months, I've been asking updates about her job search and stuff, because I'm not interested in being with someone who chooses to be home watching TV all day instead of doing something with themselves. If she had a disability or something else, it would be different, but it's just her parents pay for everything. 2 weeks ago, we received our bills. I text her screenshots of all of them and send requests for each one of them on Cash App. After a few days, she hasn't sent the money yet, so I asked her if she could send it because I need to pay the bills. She apologized and asked if I could give her a week to pay me. I agreed. During the week, she told me she'll have the money Monday, today. Today she told me she was going to go paint. She doesn't get paid for it, it's just a hobby for now. I asked her if she had the bills money. She told me that Uber takes a few days to process the money and will send it to me as soon as she has it. I told her that's exactly why I had been asking her when she would start looking for a job, because I don't want to be in this situation. She then told me that she had cash she could give me for the bill. I got a little frustrated that she had cash that whole time and didn't offer it. I told her I needed the money in my account, not in cash. I asked her if she could just deposit it in her bank and send it to me. She said I could do that myself. I'm very frustrated and just asked her to send me the money online when she has it. If she had been working and lost her job for any reason and couldn't afford the bill because of it, I wouldn't mind covering the bills. But since she makes the decision of not working and not doing anything, I'm not willing to help her financially. Am I the jerk for not helping her financially? Am I the jerk for yelling at my mom when she acted like nothing happened after my dad cheated? My parents have a great relationship. Well, that's what I thought before this happened. I'm 14, female, and my parents usually have friends over and always tell me I'm free to have friends over. So it wasn't a surprise when I unlocked the front door and could hear my dad and another woman in the kitchen. Since my dad usually calls my name when he hears me opening the door, I thought he probably didn't think I was home yet. I walked to the kitchen to greet my dad, but then I saw it. He kissed the woman on the cheek, a woman that isn't my mom. Both of them were turned, facing away from the door, so they didn't see me. My dad proceeded to flirt with the woman until I threw my bag on the ground to get their attention. They pulled apart, and Dad called out if that was me. I walked into the kitchen and greeted him and the woman, then I locked myself in my room for the rest of the afternoon. I only came out when my mom came home. I helped my mom put away her things and put her weekly flowers in a vase before turning to her and telling her what I saw. She stayed quiet for a moment, then told me that she'll take care of it and that I shouldn't worry about it anymore. A few days go by and nothing happens. There was no fight, no arguments, no sour faces at each other, no divorce. Nothing that would usually happen to cheaters in movies and stuff. It upset me how my mom would continue to joke with my dad after what he did and still cook for him. Yesterday after dinner, when my dad went to bed, I went to her demanding to know what's wrong with her and how could she go on living a life with dad who cheated. She sighed and told me to drop it, but I didn't. I asked her why she wasn't getting a divorce and why she was putting up with my jerk dad. She glared at me and told me to watch my tone and to not disrespect my dad. Finally, I yelled at her, asking why she was defending him, and she told me that she'd explain everything once I cooled down. I told my brother, who's 17, the whole story so he could know the truth about my dad, but he seemed really irritated. He told me to shut up and not tell anyone else in the family about my dad. He said that if mom said she'd handle it, she would. I told him she didn't and that they were still acting as if nothing had happened. He glared at me and told me to calm down and talk to mom like an adult if I wanted to act like one instead of just yelling at her. He also called me a jerk for escalating the situation and making dinner awkward. I don't think I'm the jerk, but whatever. Am I the jerk? Neighbor threatens to sue me. I played a reverse Uno. I recently moved into a neighborhood in Michigan. One of my neighbors, we'll call him Bob, came over to introduce himself. He told me that he has a special needs son that lives with him. The son is in his 30s with significant mental disabilities. Bob first asked if I would mind keeping dangerous things out of my yard, like not leaving chainsaws or something unattended. That's pretty reasonable. But then he proceeded to tell me that I needed to keep my garage door down at all times, or I had to lock up anything dangerous if I wanted to keep them up, like all gasoline, sharp tools, fertilizers, etc. Oh, also any beer or other drinks, like in my garage fridge. I also need to keep my door locked at all times, or else his son may wander into my house. Then Bob tells me that now that I've been warned, if his son gets into anything, I'm now liable to be sued by him. And I told Bob in no uncertain terms that he was to control his kid, and if that his kid came into my house and broke stuff, I'd absolutely sue him, and he'd absolutely pay. Later, I met the other neighbors and recounted this tale. They all got the same lecture from Bob when they moved in, and they just said, "Okay, Bob," and ignored it. They all think I handled it wrong, and that I should have just let Bob think that everything was good. They think I'm being a jerk to Bob by not letting him believe he didn't have anything to worry about. Not the jerk. That kid is Bob's responsibility, not yours. I will suggest putting up no trespassing signs and cameras. I would go a step further and send Bob and his son an official notice of trespass. I'd also inform Bob that I'd be contacting the authorities should his son be wandering alone without a caretaker. That's not good for the son's safety, especially considering he looks like an adult, and strangers will react as such. Not the jerk, OP. Am I the jerk for firing the babysitter for being a bad influence? My wife and I hired a babysitter, Adeline, who's 18, for our kids, who are 8 months, 2, 4, 5, and 7, a few months ago. Adeline is great with our kids, and she's the only babysitter that can handle so many kids. A couple problems are that she's constantly late. It's usually no more than 5 minutes. She has been 10 and even 15 minutes late, however, but it's still irritating. Another thing is, after she gets everyone asleep, she spends the rest of the night on her phone or laptop. She never cleans up in the playroom because she claims it's always messy, and she doesn't know where anything goes, and will only clean up what she did with the kids. For example, Adeline did an art project with my older 3 kids and cleaned the counters and the floor after that art project, but she didn't pick up the toys that were in the living room or do the dishes. Another problem is that her outfits. I've asked my wife to talk to her about it, but she refused, even though she admitted that she agreed about Adeline's clothes. My parents are in town, and they wanted to take the kids on a walk. While on the walk, they saw Adeline on a run wearing an outfit that barely covered anything. Everyone saw her, and my kids talked about it for days. My 5-year-old has also been talking about how pretty she is and that he's going to marry her when he gets older, which is completely unacceptable. I decided to fire her because of the reasons I listed above. When I told my wife, she started screaming at me because she thinks Adeline is a great babysitter and is reasonably priced. I told her Adeline is a bad influence and I don't want her around my kids, but she's refusing to speak to me until I call Adeline back and offer her job back. She even wants me to offer her a raise if she says no. Am I the jerk for firing the babysitter for being a bad influence? I cannot stop laughing. So much you're the jerk. If you want someone to clean your home, that is a separate service for which you must appropriately pay. From what your wife said, you're already underpaying the babysitter, so I'm sure your wife is fine with her being a few minutes late. You're already getting a great bargain. I'm sorry you're such a lazy slob that you don't clean your own house. I'm thinking it's best for Adeline that she no longer works for you. You're clearly a creep, and it's not safe for her there. Stepsister destroyed my books, gets her trip canceled. I'm 16, female. My dad married my stepmom 2 years ago. She has a daughter who's 16 called Bianca. Bianca and I don't like each other. She thinks I'm a spoiled brat and that I have a princess complex because both my parents came from money and I always get what I want. This is by no means true at all. While my parents bought me lots of things, I have a part-time job and keep my grades up to earn everything I ask for. One of the things I love the most are books. Fantasy, romance, crime, mystery, I love them all. My mom and I share this hobby, so we're always buying books and reading them together. I also have a Nintendo Switch and a TV in my room. Aside from my laptop and my phone, those are my most prized possessions. My sister is always asking to borrow my things, clothes, makeup, my Switch, or my books. I let her use the first 3 because I don't really care, but when it comes to my books, I don't let anybody else have them. A few weeks ago, she came and asked me to take 1 or 2 because she saw the guy she likes reading The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I happen to have that book, though I've still yet to read it. I said no, and we had a discussion because I was so spoiled to share. She asked again by dinner, and I said no. Then she asked by breakfast and tried to get my dad and stepmom in. Both of them agreed with me. I sent her a few links of the book on discount, and I thought that was it. But 3 days ago, when I came back from my mom's house, I found 7 of my books, including the one she wanted, ripped to pieces. Some big chunks of my wallpaper missing, and a few posters on the floor all destroyed. It was no mystery. As soon as I told my dad and stepmom, they knew it was her and grounded her. She was supposed to go to LA in June for her birthday, but her mom said she wasn't going to be paying for it, and since her dad won't either, he's a deadbeat, then she'll pretty much just miss it, since some for the money will be mine to replace all the things she destroyed, and the rest will be kept as punishment. She's now losing it on me and calling me every name under the sun because I ruined her trip and the guy has been talking to another girl. You know you're not the jerk. Your stepmom sounds awesome, considering she's making her daughter face consequences for her behavior instead of enabling it. OP. I was confident I was not the jerk, but some of my friends said that I went too far for some books because I can always replace them and that it was not that big of a deal compared to her trip because that was for her birthday. No, they're wrong. It doesn't matter what the items were. That's irrelevant. She destroyed things that didn't belong to her, and now she's facing the consequences. Not only that, but they were destroyed deliberately to hurt OP. Her stepsister likely needs counseling on better anger resolution. You didn't go too far. I don't think it was mentioned, but I have a feeling that you weren't the one who decided this punishment. You just had your property destroyed. It was your father and stepmother who made this decision. It is completely possible that even if you told your parents that she didn't have to replace it, they still wouldn't allow her to go because she did something awful and they have to discipline her to help her realize that she did wrong and to help ensure she doesn't do this again. Next time, remind your friends of this. Let them know that you didn't decide the punishment, and if they feel you just shouldn't have said anything after your room was destroyed, if they say you shouldn't have let your parents know and let your sister get away with doing this, then you may want to think deeper into those friendships. Not the jerk. You've done nothing wrong in this, and neither have your parents, in my opinion. I called roadside assistance today. Note that I am a physically capable adult male, mildly relevant. I blew out a tire while driving this afternoon, pulled off the busy road to a side street to assess the damage and start working on repairing the flat with the spare from the trunk. It turned out that the lug wrench provided in this particular car was absolutely tiny and thus provided very little leverage. Try as I might, I only managed to loosen one of the 5 lug nuts holding the tire on. No problem, I thought, as I have roadside assistance coverage on my auto insurance. A short call later, my insurance has dispatched a local service provider, and I receive a text stating that Daryl from the local provider will be arriving at my location by 2:34 p.m. That's less than a half-hour wait, so I'm pretty happy. At 2:33 p.m., a van approaches. The driver waves at me and pulls over. Driver immediately hops out with a toolkit in hand. We exchange brief pleasantries, and I explain my problem. Driver smiles and tells me the same thing happened to him last month and says not to worry about it. He takes out a proper wrench. I hand him the jack and spare, and he has my car back in operation in about 6 minutes flat. It was at this point when the conversation got a bit muddled. I asked him if he needs anything from me, like a signature, to ensure he gets paid. He responds that no money is necessary. I try to clarify my question and explain that I have roadside assistance on my policy and that my insurer got him dispatched to me and that I think they will pay his employer for the service call. His response? "Oh, no one dispatched me. I was just driving by and thought you could use some help." "So, you're not Daryl?" "Nope, Brian." I can't believe that I handed this guy my jack and just watched him crank up my car while lying on the frozen pavement. I don't even remember how many times I apologized. Guy wouldn't even let me hand him some cash. He just left in full cheer and told me to pay it forward. Aftermath. I waited another 10 minutes for Daryl, but gave up and left after finding his employer's phone number and canceling the help request. My insurer had been sending me automated texts all day along the lines of, "Has your service provider arrived yet? Reply Y if yes, N if no. Has your service been completed yet? And how likely are you to recommend this service provider from 1 to 10? I can't figure out how to respond in such a way that no one gets in trouble or over or underpaid. Anyways, thanks, Brian. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay more for a salon service than initially quoted? I was visiting LA and booked a full head of highlights, $500, with a well-known colorist. Yes, it's pricey, but hey, when in Rome. I was quoted $500 and 3 hours when I booked the appointment online. Then the series of events went like this. I get to the appointment on time. I work remotely and took the day off to make this work. They inform me that they may not have the supplies to color my hair, but they are waiting for a delivery. We start the appointment 30 minutes late. I'm irritated, but at this point, I'm just happy to not have to reschedule. I tell the colorist I want to go as blonde as possible. For context, I have 2-month grown-out golden blonde, professionally done highlights. My hair is not thick, curly, or long. I've been told my hair is fine, but I have a lot of it. We make a game plan. She says she can't get me platinum today as it could damage, but we'll get as close as we can. She and her assistant go through foiling my hair. I've been getting salon highlights for about 20 years. From what I can tell, I'm getting a full head of highlights. At times, she stops to help other clients and comes back to me. At this point, I realize I'm going to be there all day. It's fine. After the hair is processed, they do a treatment in the shampoo bowl. I think it was a conditioning treatment. I wait another 30 minutes while that sits, followed by a gloss, sitting another 10 minutes, shampoo and blowout. I'm there for 5 hours, annoyed but didn't say anything and just happy to be done. I'm happy about the result. She mentions that she's surprised how much my hair lifted, but it's likely because it's in good condition. I pay the $500 with my card on file and tip 20% in cash. She tells me when I'm back in LA to book again and she can get me lighter. Great. I decide not to book that day just so I can see how it looks over the next few weeks. I leave excited with my new hair. 20 minutes later, I have a voicemail from the salon saying they undercharged me. The price wasn't $500. It's actually $1,000 for the service I had. I'm shocked. I freeze my credit card so they're unable to charge anything else. They start texting me, saying that the colorist was so busy she forgot to mention it to the front desk. They keep calling. I'm annoyed now since we never discussed a price increase, never mind 2 times what was originally quoted. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay? I had intended to sleep on it and just message them back in the morning with feedback on how this is bad business, but they can charge my card. But now I really don't want to pay it. It would have been bad enough had they tried to charge me $1,000 when checking out, but I was already done at this point. Also, if it was $100 more or something, sure, whatever, mistakes happen. But double the initial price? And I wasted my whole day off there, most of it waiting around for color to process. As far as I know, it wasn't more work for her. Not the jerk. They didn't tell you before the service. They didn't tell you after the service. They didn't even tell you while you were still there. They only caught it after they told you everything was done. They did it once they realized she's a tourist. You tend to get upcharged when they know you won't be back, but this is very shady. Sorry, but they shouldn't have told her after the service. If they didn't tell her beforehand, they had no right to the upcharge. A professional should be able to accurately quote their services once you're in the chair. Price can be adjusted at that point once they know what they're up against. Total jerk move. Not the jerk. I've had a stylist make comments while coloring my hair that it was taking more bleach and more dye than expected. My hair was very short and just drinking the product. She had to get someone else who didn't have gloves covered in product already to open more things for both the bleach and the dye. The charge when the service was done was higher than originally quoted, but it wasn't fully double, and I already knew the service took more product than was in the original quote. OP is not the jerk. That salon is trying to commit theft if they're changing the price that late and just trying to charge the card anyway. If they at least said it while OP was still at the salon, they could have discussed and possibly met in the middle, but there is no excusing trying to charge that much extra after OP left. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you pay the full price they're asking for or not? Please let us know.
I'd leave them more bad reviews online than they can imagine.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.